listening to the
Hey, MFM. See you on the lips.
Back attack, dude.
Fun Fire!
Hey, yo, homies, good.
Slide down the big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
All right. Welcome back to the Bomb Hole, which is presented by Pub Beer. First things first, Stony Buds is actually not here this week, but he will be back shortly and better than ever. So don't worry, he will be back. But temporarily, we have Mikey LeBlanc filling in for Stony Buds. So, Mikey, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. And today in the booth, we got Circe Wallace. Circe, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we are so happy that you could join us. For the listeners that don't know who you are or familiar with your body of work, we'll call it, Circe is a super agent of snowboarding and skating, VP at Wasserman, one of the biggest agencies in the world. She's an ex-pro snowboarder, first woman with a pro model snowboard boot. She's a pioneer of agents in action sports, co-founder of the Natural Selection Tour, a pivotal part of the foundation of our culture. Circe is a badass. She is a walking masterclass in action sports education. This could be a fun one. We got a good brain to pick today about all things action sports. But first things first, where are you from and how did you fall in love with snowboarding?
I'm originally from Eugene, Oregon, and snowboarding. I really discovered. I mean, I was a skater, so board sports were kind of an early. I don't know. I felt like skateboarding. I was a bit of a troubled kid, and skateboarding gave me an outlet and a community. And so I had a neighbor who was kind of a trust fund kid who named Thatcher, and he had a car and a house and a bunch of snowboards, and he took me up to Hoodoo Mountain for my first shred. I remember I was on a Burton Woody, and I had workmen boots, and I had put Air Jordans inside of the men's workman boot, like kind of as my bladder, and then duct taped them. And then the most vivid memory of that day was that it was kind of a fun day. It was kind of warm and slushy. Must have been spring. But the chairlift hit me on the back of the head unloading, and I bit all the way through my tongue. And I was just spitting up blood everywhere, but I was having so much fun that I kept riding for the rest of the afternoon. And I remember just feeling like I love this. This is, I was an angsty kid. I felt a lot of anger and frustration in my adolescence, and being in nature and with my friends felt and it just felt, I don't know, it felt kind of a way for me to express that angst, and it dissipated while being on the mountain, and I could put my energy into something that felt like really good.
Love that. I've heard it described as a vehicle for self-expression, which I think fits in regards to snowboarding really well. And I'm also curious about your parents. I've heard you mention that you kind of had like a bit of a bohemian upbringing and how that shaped you.
Yeah, so both of my parents are artists. I'm the only offspring of my mother and father, so they both remarried and had kids. But my mom is like a visual artist. She's kind of a renowned Northwest artist who she's worked in a bunch of mediums, but, art was very much her passion, and, she's still an active artist. And then my dad is a musician and a playwright. So I definitely, Eugene, Oregon in the 70s was definitely a very bohemian time, very counterculture. They were very creative, and also I lived in a commune essentially for the first bit of my life while they were still together. They got divorced, I think, when I was 3. And the commune was basically, it was called Kintyre, and it was on the outskirts of town near the railroad yard. But it was like a beautiful old home, and it was full of all of these creative types. And I certainly think made a very early impression on me in the creative arts and a bohemian lifestyle.
That's amazing. So, I mean, it's interesting for me because you started out to me in the arts world with snowboarding, then you took such a strong business approach later on. Where do you think you picked that up?
I think I was always inherently had an aversion to the like living hand to mouth lifestyle of an artist, and watching my parents struggle as struggling artists and also as kind of counterculture hippies. I always knew kind of intrinsically that I was going to have to earn my own way, and I wanted nice things. And so early in adolescence, I really realized that like I was going to have to get work or jobs, to get the things that I wanted, or go to concerts or, whatever. I was kind of on my own. And not that my parents didn't totally love me. I have, I have a loving relationship with my family. But we were just poor. And so it was like, I knew very early on that I wanted nice things and I was going to do the work. And that I didn't want to be an artist.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you're helping artists make their money. Really,
it feels very full
artists,
circle. Yeah, it really does in that way. And it's funny. I was just talking to Trevor Andrew the other day, and I kind of had this epiphany, like, oh, right, this is kind of where this is part of my journey, is now helping facilitate opportunity for these creatives.
Now, this is a topic we always bring up on the show, and it's fun to pick everybody's brain. And you have people that you represent that are in, the Olympics and all these, and you also have people that film video parts. And from your perspective, I'm really curious as if you view snowboarding as more of an art form or a sport.
I think it's both, honestly. Like for me, in my own space and time on the hill, like it feels very viscerally creative. Like I can express myself. I've always been able to. And there's a lot of room for that in snowboarding, as opposed to other sports. But inevitably, with Olympic inclusion and competition has always been a part of our sport. So I think it's unique in that it can straddle both of those kind of genres of art and sport. And what makes it so interesting, like the innovation of tricks or the creative expression, and especially if it's accurately judged, the more creative you are, or stylistically expressing yourself, hopefully that gives you an advantage in the sport realm, which I think is unique.
Yeah, great answer. Well, before we get into, your post snowboard career, we got to talk about your snowboard career and how you went from biting through your tongue and bleeding and falling in love with snowboarding to sponsorship. Fill in the gap there for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was late 80s, early 90s, and we were in the very nascent stage of snowboarding becoming more mainstream. It was still the era of sponsor me videos, and we were in VHS era, so I didn't have a VHS or access to such technology, so I would send out, I had very early on been good at writing my own resume, or I had worked at Starbucks and had some good work experience that allowed me enough understanding of what a sponsor pitch looked like. And also at that time, I was dating Jamie Lynn and was helping him kind of put together his materials. So, we kind of came up together during that time. And Mervyn, which was GNU LibTech at that time, on Lake Union, flowed me boards. Prior to that, I was on Burton Proform with the local rep. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I did okay in the Northwest Series, which was the local series of event contests hosted by Bob Barcy, who was an OG, and Bike Factory was his local shop. So, yeah, that was kind of how that trajectory started. And then, once I had some resources, really, how I was able to level up in terms of sponsorship was from my job at Starbucks. I had written a proposal. At that time, I worked at Store 10, which is crazy to think about now. They have over, 4,000 worldwide. But I had written a proposal to my employer because I had gotten invited to the Japan World Championships and I needed a couple grand to get there. And they sponsored me and helped me cover my ticket to get there. And I ended up winning that contest and then came home. And then things started to happen for me. And they let me pick up shifts so I could kind of quit the 9 to 5 and I could travel. And then whenever I was in town, I literally, at that time, there was more stores and there was like 7 or 8 in Seattle. And so I could just, if people called in sick or whatever, I could just, I could call in and say, hey, I'm home for 4 days. And they'd be like, okay, great, go to this store. And that was cool too, because I got to make new friends and have new experiences. And also, it helped me afford, to continue to pursue my dream.
That's so cool.
And now I must say, I'm not a fan of Starbucks. And I'm really mad at Howard Schultz for trying to be a union buster. And he sold the Sonics. So
Starbucks no-fly zone.
no, and they could single-handedly change the single-use plastics problem in the world and refuse to. So margins over people.
I like that. We're gonna get into all that stuff. I mean, we could get into it now, but I feel like let's just get into it because I'm super curious about this. I you got a good brain like Circe that understands things. You got to ask your questions. I feel like you see the playing field as far as action sports or specifically snowboarding from a higher level. Maybe we're all at ground level. You're at 3,000 feet. You understand how the ecosystem of snowboarding works. So what do we got to do on a broader level to not cannibalize our culture?
Ooh, that's a
hard-hitting
loaded question.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's just get something out of the way real quick. I am fundamentally an anti-capitalist who really likes nice things. So I'm kind of a walking hypocrisy. So I'm very aware of my hypocrisy. I think the thing that allows me the freedom to feel good about what I do, which is extracting dollars, is because it's on behalf of people I love, and that I am helping facilitate a dream for a kid, regardless of who it is that they want to ride for, whether I agree with their or the corporation's practices or otherwise. It's my job to make sure that that individual extracts the most opportunity out of this window of time that they have. So that's how I reconcile my own hypocrisy. And so I think, if you look at the growth of snowboarding as a good thing, but it's also a bad thing in that we've had, all of this market conglomeratization, if that's a word, where corporations have come in, and whether it's venture capital or they're a publicly held company where shareholders come first, inevitably with that, some of the nuances or what's really ultimately important from a community or a holistic perspective gets lost. And so I think the best way that we can challenge that is to be very conscious of where we spend our money and that we support either rider-owned brands or brands that are really supporting the space and the community and the members of it, and not just making decisions based on shareholder value or profit margin. I think triple bottom line businesses are going to become increasingly important, and I think that it is so critically important for us as consumers to really vote with our dollars and make sure that we're spending with brands that are aligned with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Very well said. I mean, there's so many great small brands that I can think of that are just mom and pop out of garages in skating and snowboarding. Do you have any favorites currently? Or?
Oh, goodness, yes. I mean, so many. I mean, I even look at like, OG brands like Soltech that essentially got crushed by, the Adidas and Nike SB entry into the marketplace. And it is a little bit of a scorched earth scenario if you look at how much they spent on entering the market and then removing themselves from the market. And I think that was really damaging to us. And so, I really love Don Brown and what they've done at Soltech. I think that they are a core brand. I might not totally agree with all of the decisions that they make, but they're still privately held, and I think that that's important. Obviously, Mervyn.
Yep.
I love those guys. Those guys are like family. They make the best boards. They are, they've worked so hard. Everyone's still there, from Mike to Pete to Postulis. Like, they're all Barrett. They're all just.
I had to hit that with an air horn.
Maybe a double air horn.
Yeah, that's
super air horn.
Well, yeah, we doubled up for Mervyn.
Well, and they've struggled a lot to, kind of challenge, some of the bigger players that have come in and waved their dollars around or
Good word choice.
Yeah.
All right, for somebody that doesn't understand economics, asking for a friend, can you just like dumb down why it's important to not support the conglomerates?
Because they don't care. They don't care about snowboarding. All they care about is either share price or bottom line. And that's just not enough. Like, we're all humans. And I think part of the problem that we have just as a society, we went through an industrialization and, we're built on capitalism, and a lot of that gets lost. Like, how big of a company do you need to be? Let's support cottage industry. And I really believe in that. I also love like Union and Capita and all those. That crew are amazing, and they're making good products, and I think they're snowboarders. There's so many. There's so many small brands, even the Bomb Hole. Like, it's, you guys are serving the community, and you're not trying to be something that you're not to make more money. It's like, how do we make this business work for us?
Mm-hmm. Well, even as you're talking, I'm thinking about the advertising that we have to do to keep a light on over our heads, and thinking about that in a more like, something that serves our culture, better. Like, part of me, as you're talking, I'm like, how do we get more rider-owned brands doing advertising? Because I think that would be good for the culture. And I'm like, you're kind of helping me understand the ecosystem of snowboarding better, just listening to hear how you explain it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think we all have to kind of manage our expectations. That there's a lot of small brands that, like, listen, I work for individuals. I need to go extract the most money I can out of some of these larger corporations that need to utilize them for marketing vehicles. That's the only way that they can make a living. Not that many snowboarders that are really creating legacy wealth. There's a handful, right? But by and large, once you're done with your snowboard career, you're lucky if you own your home or, you don't get a college education. There's not a lot of opportunities outside of the industry workforce. But I think that's also good in that it keeps, I think we're pretty good at that. I think by and large, we're good at hiring from within. Mm-hmm. Even some of the companies that I might not be aligned with in terms of their sales objectives or growth objectives or whatever, I think there is a pretty robust workforce and that we try to tend to hire from within, which is cool.
Yeah, something that brings up, I mean, I think it'd be interesting for riders to know if you can flip it. Like, what is the brand really looking for the rider to provide? Because I've always called it a lane if they have something unique, but I would love to hear your perspective on what a rider really is providing a brand.
Well, I mean, the ultimate goal is that they help move the needle in selling a product, right? Like direct sales conversion is the ultimate goal. But also the essence of the brand, how well they represent, and are they good content creators? Are they good communicators? Are they good ambassadors? And sometimes that might not, make total sense, but it's an emotional investment. And I think that we should make more of those. I don't think it should, everything's so data driven now, right? There's no, it's like we're losing our instinct because we're trying to make decisions based on incoming data as opposed to like, what do we really feel in our gut, which is what we have always done historically, right? It's like, well, we see things that are coming. I think that's what's interesting about action sports as a whole. We're leading trend historically. But then once you have some of these larger corporations come in, and now with the rise of data informed business, we're more reactive to data. And also I think, a lot of it comes down to, the rise of Amazon, how we consume, people shopping on price, not necessarily on quality. Like, we've just been conditioned for immediate, happiness from a purchase, and we want it now within minutes, as opposed to, maybe a little more scarcity or a little more value that we might put towards something. And I think that it's important for us to like take a step back every now and then and be like, okay, first of all, like maybe I should make a more meaningful investment in a company that I really believe in, and it might take a little bit longer. But I know that not only am I getting a product that I like and love, but I'm actually supporting the ecosystem of core brands.
So well articulated.
I told you, man. I told you.
She's good. She's
Told
good.
you.
I like that. I oftentimes think about my friend Chris Beresford. He has a small sunglass company called Dang Shades, and he runs it himself and does great for himself. House is paid off, but keeps it lean. And he told me one time he's, his ethos, and we've taken it here at the Bomb Hole, and he's always saying, how do I be not like Amazon? In the sense that when you buy something, you get a handwritten note, and we do that here. Or, you feel like you're buying it from this family vibe. Like you buy something from the Bomb Hole.
A person,
right? And as opposed to, and I think it's like you look at McDonald's, right? And it's like this big corporation, like I kind of liken it to Amazon. And then maybe you take your mom and pop's restaurants, and your mom and pop's restaurant experience where you maybe know the owner is going to be much better than your, like they polarize, and they make the other one more appealing in a way. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think you really have to like understand that like the rise of Amazon is at the expense and on the backs of basically slave labor, right? Like there is no world within that can continue to be scalable. Like I just read the other day that like literally someone died on the line packing boxes, and instead of shutting the line down, they put up like a barrier around the deceased and made everyone keep working.
Wow.
I mean, that is just, it's just so wrong. And that I think that we as a culture, the best way for us to counter that is to not consume from corporations that behave in that way. And I know it's really hard to untether. Like I still buy shit from Amazon that I can't get anywhere else, or if I need something the next day, I really, really try to refrain. But there's still occasions, and I tried to untether recently, and they made it so difficult. It was like I gave up, and I'm ashamed to publicly admit that. But I would like to get to a place where I can sleep at night knowing that I'm not continuing to be a part of that.
Damn, Good. You're shedding awareness over here too.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. Well, before we've been kind of derailed from your pro career. And actually, I got a guest question from Hannah Beeman. So let's just get into that. I think it's a good one.
I love her.
Hi, Bombhole. It's Hannah Beeman. I have a question for Circe, and I am wondering, as another female in snowboarding, we both have been kind of just, one of the boys in our early careers. And I wanted Circe to maybe talk a little bit about those times and the trips and the crazy, memories filming with the guys. I'm just curious to know what that was like for her. And also how that may have helped her down the line as an agent and really being able to hold her own with other male agents, TMs, and riders. I think she's a really strong and powerful woman and agent, and I know she's really had my back many a times. So I just want to know how those experiences have contributed to her being such a boss.
Hannah. Whew, that's a really good question. And I have to mention that I've worked with Hannah for a really long time. I mean, it's been over 20 years that I've known her and seen her. I mean, Hannah, you're incredible. I love you so much. Well, I think I've always felt really included in snowboarding. I never felt like there was this weird gender thing. That I think I've definitely felt in skate. And I don't know if it was just a moment in time where I think it was because we were all these, we were a part of a community. It didn't matter what gender you were. It didn't really matter except for that you identified as a snowboarder, right? And that we were the counterculture and the skiers hated us. And so we had something that unified us against them. And whether it was the resort operators or the skiers spitting at us from the chairlifts or bad editorial or whatever it was that we all of a sudden were like ruining the mountain, that allowed us to like really feel like a part of our own community. It was the first time in my life where I actually felt like outside of my kind of skate clique in Eugene that I had a family, right? Like I don't really keep in touch with anybody from high school or any of my school years, but I keep in touch with everybody in the snowboard community. And that is really, truly my family. And I'm kind of perpetually amazed at what a beautiful tribe we are. I think that I really always wanted to be the girl with the guys. I very early on was kind of an asshole to any interloper woman or girl who came in because I wanted to be the one to hold the space for women. As I got older, obviously I realized how damaging that was. And I kind of had to reconcile that a little bit. And I continue to, just in helping the people that I work with understand the importance of allyship and helping other women. And so I think that I felt kind of empowered, to be honest, by being able to hang with the guys and being included. And also, I had beautiful relationships. Like I had the best boyfriends. Jamie was wonderful. I love him so much. Andy, obviously, Hetzel, who is, the father of my daughter, Ava Hetzel. And just a wonderful person and one of my best friends. Even now, like our families vacation together, and I love his wife and his kids and my kids. My other daughter, Hemingway, are honestly like besties. Like they're like cousins. And so I feel like I made good choices in men. Who are always just incredibly supportive and loving and helpful. And yeah, it was wild. And I definitely had run-ins and awkward situations and, some early trauma, but never in snowboarding. It was always like we looked out for each other and I felt very much a part And also, like, I was included from like Tina Bassich and Michelle Taggart and Shannon Dunn and so many of those early influencers and legends. I remember Doug Palladini invited me on my first editorial trip for Snowboarder Mag, and it was with Tina and Shannon and Michelle, and that really turned into a lifelong of friendships and was kind of my debut in the media. And I think initially I was like, oh God, why do I got to get grouped in with all the girls? I really wanted to be seen independently of like being lumped into the girls. But in retrospect, it was so inclusive. And I think snowboarding's really special in that way. I think we have a diversity problem, but I think we're working on that. But specifically as it relates to me as a woman in the space, I always felt safe and loved.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk about one of our partners, Sunbum. 2010, they started making products, and it's important to know as snowboarders that you can still get cooked like a Kenny Rogers roasted chicken out there, even midwinter.
Oh, man, I have been literally blistered on the face. And, I also like to throw some sunscreen on a really windy day. I feel like it gives you a little extra protection for wind and sun.
Wind protection. And we got some homies that ride for Sunbum. Jill Perkins, Blake Paul.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely dug into their Sunbum stash several times this year, Chris.
Yeah, they keep it on them in the backcountry. The good thing that I use the Mineral SPF 50 face stick, and it fits in your pocket. You just get yourself lathered up, and especially now, warmer weather, spring riding, you're gonna want to keep some sunscreen.
I'm pretty picky, Chris, and I the first time I use it, I buy a specific...
Well, you're pretty pale too.
Well, that too, because I use sunscreen all the time. But when I put it on, it was smooth and silky. It didn't feel like it was stuck on there, which I really liked.
Being Irish, you probably burn pretty easy.
I mean, I literally have blistered so bad, my whole nose came off at one point.
Well, how do you prevent that?
Sunbum.
Exactly. So if you want to support Sunbum, buy it at your local surf shops, snowboard shops. They support the show, so you should support them. All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk to you about one of our partners, Bubs Naturals. We always talk about their collagen, great for recovery after a long day on the hill. But big news, they're making coffee. It's called Bubs Brew. It's USDA organic, fair trade. Also, it's the first ever coffee bean to be Whole30 approved. Now, Bubs Naturals is a way of life. They believe wellness is driven from the inside out through the spirit of Glenn and a passion for nature's highest quality and sustainably sourced ingredients. We help fuel people to reach their maximum human potential while giving 10% back to charity. Their mission is simple: feel great, do good. Head on over to bubsnaturals.com. Use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off. Again, bubsnaturals.com. Use promo code BOMBHOLE for 20% off your order. And it's a snowboarder-owned brand, and they support us, so you should support them. And with that being said, let's get back to the show. Okay, and to continue on with Hannah's question, there was kind of a second part of how snowboarding served you in the continuation of your career as an agent.
I think being in predominantly male spaces made that transition easier for me. I don't think I really understood kind of sexism or misogyny until I was a sports agent, where it was so clearly apparent of what a boys' club network it is, and continues to be, frankly. So I think had I known how challenging it was, I probably would have had a harder time, but because I was kind of naive to it, because I didn't have as much exposure to some of that systemic misogyny, that it allowed me a naivety that it's like one of those things where they say, like, if you'd known how hard it was going to be, you probably wouldn't have done it. So it's just part of the process. And, that has been difficult, that reality, and continues to be a challenge for me. So I try to do the best I can, and there's often times where I find myself agitated or frustrated and a lot of it's unconscious, right? The kind of unconscious bias or boys club mentality. Oftentimes, if I call it like I see it, a man might take offense because it is so unconscious.
I love this topic. Me and Mikey were kind of talking about this before, but a strong female energy in a male-dominated space can be off-putting for dudes, right? And I'm sure you've experienced that. But
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious, in your mind, I'd love to go deep dive psychology on why do you think that is? Is it insecurity? What drives men to be off-put by a strong female energy?
I think it's probably just they're ill prepared for how to deal with a highly intelligent, emotional being. Like we do have, an EI that is or tends to be a little more kind of tuned in to that aspect of ourselves, which is also why, you often hear like, oh, you're so emotional, or, I think women are just inherently kind of more tuned in to the feminine, and as a result can use their emotional IQ to help navigate situations. And a lot of times dudes don't have that developed part of themselves, and so it is intimidating because it actually is an advantage that they're not even totally aware of, and so it feels scary.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you interact with a bunch of people, and I think some of the misconception would be that part of the male business that I've been a part of is there's almost like I'm trying to get on top of you.
Yeah.
But the way I've seen you interact is you really want to meet people eye to eye.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, but I think a lot of the male approach is like, I'm going to dominate.
Alpha vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, there's something to that in that, like it's like historically, strategically, the more dominant you are, it is intrinsic. It's like part of our DNA, right? The male is, the alpha. And so there is a role, and I oftentimes challenge that role, and they don't even know it. They don't even know why that makes them feel uncomfortable. It's just because they're like programmed. And, we're really leveling up as humans in our consciousness. And I've gotten better at navigating that instead of just, being angry, which is my automatic default, and trying to help them understand how I'm trying to work with them, or that I am in their service, whether it's with a brand for the benefit of a deal or a client, or with a client, or with a contemporary. I think that we kind of still have a lot of work to do. We're still really far from pay parity, and like if you look at the top earning agents in sport, it is like Forbes does like the top 50 or 100, and it's all men. And so I think there is, still a lot of work to be done. And I'm here for it. I think that I want to challenge aspects of that dynamic that no longer serve, because we don't need an alpha, hunting for us, or necessarily providing for us. We're dual income households now, right? Like women are working. But I think we still have some systemic problems, especially in this country where there's like no paid parental leave. There's not a lot of support for working moms. Like I didn't take any time off with either of my kids. And that's not because my employer wouldn't give it to me, but because I'm in a kind of business where client services, like you lose a client, they just go away. There's no one else to step into that unless they fire you, right? So, and that was a choice that I made, but I had to reconcile that a little bit because it did feel... it was hard. It's really hard. We have to do more than you guys.
What are I mean, this topic? I love this topic. I mean, most of that alpha thing comes from the reptilian brain. It's fight or flight. But what are your tricks? Let's say you're going into a meeting. I know you do your homework. You know you may be going into an alpha situation. What are your tricks to sort of bring that level, or do you not even try to level it out and you just sort of work?
I try to diffuse it just by being reasonable and being a collaborator, right? Like every relationship, it really should be a collaboration. That's how you get the most out of a long-term deal. Again, whether with a client or a brand, and the hope is that you can do good work together. And so I try to, oftentimes broach it with like, hey, look, I'm here to help. Like I'm in the service not only of the athlete or the artist, but as the brand in making sure that deliverables are being met and that I'm additive, right? Like I'm not here to get in the way of the relationship. I'm not here just because I'm like trying to swing my dick around and get more money for my client. It's like I understand how important long-term productive relationships are, and I'm always starting from that place. I'd say I have more of a challenge with many of my male contemporaries because I am threatening. I do kind of have a little bit of an advantage sometimes in being a woman, and that is something they're unused to or uncomfortable with.
I think it's a good point that you bring up as far as self-awareness and it being unconscious, right? From generations not that far ago, like women weren't allowed to vote that long ago. Like there's like women, you know what I mean? Like it hasn't been that long. So some of these ideals are passed down unconsciously. And so it's good to talk about them and shed light on them and make, spreading awareness is important for this. 'Cause like you said, a lot of dudes don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah, and let's be real right now. Like what's happening in the political landscape is very intentional to maintain this patriarchal power structure. It is so fucking scary what's happening right now in taking back our rights and autonomy over our own bodies. I'm deeply disturbed and very scared for this country in, taking away these rights, and also not supporting what many of the first world countries are doing in terms of, paternity and maternity leaves and, paid time off and, good health care, all of those things that make up a high functioning first world society. We are behind the curve pretty dramatically. And so much of that is just about power and money. But it is a very dark time in this country, and I think that we all should be very concerned, and we should be showing up at the ballot box and in every way we can in our communities to ensure, equal rights, fair pay, and choice.
Respect and agree 100%. We got a guest question from Russell Winfield. Here we go.
Hey, Circe, Russell here. What's up, Bombhole boys? Hope all's good with you. Circe, I have a question for you. I want to know if, you being the strong woman you are, if people have, in the industry, have, tried to use that against you or said, some derogatory stuff about that, because I feel like that, that could happen. Let me know. I hope you're well. Talk to you soon. Love you.
Oh, Russ, I love you too. Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, I deal with it every day. And to be totally frank, there's a lot of women who have a really hard time with me. It is that, I would say, is harder for me these days than what I come up across with men, where I expect that, right? It's the women that I have a problem with who think that there's only room for them. And that's very relatable to me, as I shared earlier. But I think the only way that we change this dynamic is with male allies and with women understanding that they actually have some level of accountability in changing that dynamic. And that includes if you're a woman, hiring women accountants, hire women lawyers, hire women agents. Like the only way that we create more balance and equity is by, you can't be out there like screaming about how, we need more gender equality and then not going out of your way to empower and pay women in your life to do the work that you pay people to do.
It all comes back to voting with your dollars. It's the same thing as hiring with your dollars or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, I say that with Jules. I'm like, people ask me a question. I'm like, I don't know, man. I just work here. Ask Jules. She runs the ship.
Let's give Jules a.
Let's give Jules an air horn.
Yeah, Jules.
Amazing. Yeah, this is fun stuff. Talking about all this stuff. You're so intelligent in regards to all these deep socio-economic issues, and I love it. I'm like a hollow-headed snowboarder that talks about tricks a lot and like things like that, and it's fun to get on a deeper level with this stuff.
Yeah, well, while we're on it, and especially because Russell just weighed in, and I talked earlier about the need for us to include more diversity, I think that is probably more important than gender equity at this point as it relates to snowboarding. Like, we need to be doing so much more. Like, I'm surprised. Like, I've taken on a lot of Black and brown clients, and I am so incredibly challenged by the performative nature of the industry and the lack of real meaningful support for a lot of these athletes. And I think, it's a lot of performative bullshit. And I think that these brands should really start putting their money where their mouth is.
Elaborate on performative bullshit?
Yeah, well, they will utilize a Black or brown person in marketing materials or consumer-facing efforts while not actually doing anything to develop or put resources towards creating a more robust, equal opportunity for Black and brown kids who don't have, historically the same resources and tend to be marginalized in our communities. And it is upon all of us, if we want to be more diverse, to make meaningful investment, even though there might not be immediate ROI, that if you're going to try to sell products and talk about your diversity and inclusion, then you actually need to build programs that actually support the development of more participation from Black and brown kids.
Yeah, I agree. And I laugh about it because I feel like the culture, not just snowboarding, has taken so much from Black and brown culture, music, style, fashion. It's all part of our sport. And for a brand to say there's no ROI there, it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
The whole thing's been appropriated almost.
Right. One thing that I keep running into is, there'll be some budget allotment or, dollars earmarked for D&I, but then how that's actually spent isn't really meaningful, right? It's more for a marketing initiative or something to try to get consumers to look at them a certain way. But the reality of how those dollars are actually being spent isn't meaningful. And I think that's really what needs to change, because there is a lot of dialogue about this. There is a lot of visibility about it. We all know the challenges historically. And, what we need to do is actually really take meaningful action. And that's really hard when you're in an environment that is more concerned about a bottom line than some of these more societal or culture issues that, it's oftentimes when I work with Black and brown clients, there is a feeling of scarcity. It's much like the challenges I run into with other women in positions of influence, where it's like a proprietary or a protective nature in wanting to make sure that they get the opportunity. And I think we all need to do the work to make sure that there's enough opportunity for everybody, and that for anyone who wants to participate in the space, there is resources and access to those spaces.
Now there's talking about access and things like that. Lift tickets. This is an interesting topic because I grew up. Like my local hill was $12 in Massachusetts to go snowboarding. And ski ward. Give him an air horn. And nowadays, upwards of 200. A lot of places for a day ticket. We're gonna hit you with another hard-hitting topic. We're staying on the hard-hitting topic.
got the right person.
I know you have you got a take on this. What's your take? I know you got a take
On the price of lift tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the same thing as everything else. I mean, listen, we are living in a time of radical climate change. It costs so much money to operate a ski resort now, and snowmaking, and all the capex or whatever is required to actually run a resort. So there's an aspect of me that understands like anything you do has to make business sense, or what's the point of doing it, right? But I think what's more important is that we take a step back and really consider like, what does the future of snowboarding look like? How do we make this sustainable? And I don't have any easy answers, but, I think we're in a world of hurt as it relates specifically to this industry. And if you read anything or look at average snowfall, like obviously the West Coast had and Utah had a radical season, but it's going to get weirder. And, I think this is just one of many problems, but certainly there's aspects of that are problematic. And it is, I couldn't afford $200 a day lift ticket. Like, thank goodness for the IKON, because it allows my family access that they wouldn't have otherwise. So I don't have any easy solutions for that. I have some empathy for the price of lift tickets. But, let's be real. Snowboarding and skiing has always been kind of an elitist activity. Snowboarding brought in a much grungier consumer. And, thank God for, some of the accessibility that we have, whether it's hitting rails downtown or, swap meets, which is where I got my start of gear. But I think, if there's a will, there's a way. And I think that, I talked about IKON, but, that's something that is, relatively, if that's what you and your family want to do and you can find efficiencies, it's created a little more accessibility and opportunity than we've had historically.
It's an interesting paradox too, though, because we want accessibility, but then when the mountain's crowded, we don't want accessibility. It's right. Too. There's that, right? Because then there's lift lines. So these are complex issues. We don't have the answers here, people. We're just having a discussion, and that's okay.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of used gear out there, and I think we're starting to see the rise of rope tow hills and places like that. Maybe that's the way we go with it, but I don't know. Don't have the solution yet.
Yeah, and I don't know that we need to have one, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I think that we just need to do things that we can do in our everyday lives. Like, what is it that we can do to minimize our impact and create more allyship and accessibility for our communities? I think we need to get back to more community. I think we're also lucky in that we have one, right? We're not living on an island. We have... and we're making impact in our respective worlds. And I think that everyone should consider, what it is that they're doing and how they can have a life of purpose in their communities and help each other.
Yeah,
it really.
And I do want to say too, like we've been talking a lot about, there are some doomsday stuff happen. There's we've been talking about what's wrong in snowboarding, which is important. But there's also been some great progress too, right? There's some good things happening. I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like we're stronger than ever. From our perspective, it being at the bomb hole and the interaction we get from the snowboard community, from my lens, it feels really strong right now.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a lot of industry that is not as progressive as we are, and that we're all very lucky to have each other.
Good stuff. All right, let's hammer some Patreon questions. Actually, before we do Patreon questions, I wrote down a list of a couple of your clients. So our listeners, of who you've worked with over the years as an agent. So we got Travis Rice, we got Zoe, snowboarding Big Air, Jared, P-Rod, Costin, Jaeger Eaton, Scheckler, Tora Bright, Hannah Beeman, list goes on. Just so people kind of understand the magnitude of your clients, I wanted to just sprinkle that in.
Yeah, Deshaun Jordan, Russell Winfield, Siddhartha Ola. I mean, so many fun, amazing humans I've been able to be in the service of. It's been truly an honor.
All right, Circe, I'm interested how you choose to work with a client. Is that, you probably find someone, maybe you found them when they're young, but oftentimes maybe they're older. But what is that relationship you're looking for? Is there certain things that you...
Yeah, I think it's kind of changed over the years. Now it's very natural and organic, like whether someone comes to me, like I signed this kid, Liam Gill, who's a First Nations kid in Canada, who's a snowboarder who I met from I had offered a sports management mastermind for any BIPOC kids or anyone that couldn't afford the class, and then he attended the class, and then I got to know him and his family, and it was like a perfect opportunity for me to develop his career with him. So that was like super organic, right? It just happened kind of naturally. And quite honestly, like he's on the Canadian team for the Olympics. He went to Beijing for half pipe. Like he's just checks a lot of the boxes in terms of where I think I can help and bring value, and also the kind of talent that I want to work with. Like he's doing a ton of work in his community in Northern Territories, and just talking to kids and creating opportunity and visibility for snowboarding as a career. And I just think that's totally beautiful. And then there's kids like Jagger, who just turned 22, who I signed when he was 8, and that was kind of as a favor to a friend. And now he's like my family, right? He's a double threat for Paris, which is so fun, the only one in the world for Park and Street. And I love him. And so I think, it happens in a variety of ways. I often am approached. I often, I have like a kind of an internal number, which is like, between 8 and 10, where, 5 of them are, let's say, top earners, and the rest are kind of development. And, they kind of cycle out. But I will say many of my top earners I've had for 20 years, like Travis.
Yeah.
So we have a Patreon question from Simon Bristow. How do you score T. Ricky as a client?
That's a good question. I don't know that he likes being called T. Ricky. Did you ask him that?
We joke with him when he's here.
I didn't listen to the whole 5.5 hours.
I've never asked him that, but we do repeatedly call him T. Ricky.
Everybody in the crew calls him T. Ricky.
Okay.
Has he told you he doesn't like being called that?
No, it's just instinct.
It's respect. It's respect.
We are T. Ricky
If you
fans.
earn a nickname, it's because we love you.
Like
100%.
Sparky with McMorris? Okay.
If Travis was like, "Hey man, stop calling me T. Rick," by all
I would
means,
immediately stop.
I
I'd
would
Okay.
probably run around with my tail. between my legs.
Okay. Well, I'll ask him. How did I score him? This is a good story. I had just had Ava, and I was looking for talent, and I had eyes on him, and obviously I saw what he did at Chad's Gap and was like, I want to work with this kid. And so I went to the U.S. Open and met with him in person with baby Ave in tow. I think she was literally like 2 or 3 months old. Like she was a baby. I had her in the baby Bjorn under my jacket. And I met with him and his stepdad, Bob. And at that time, he had a lot of people coming at him. And for whatever reason, he chose me with my baby in tow, which I think says a lot about his character. I think for whatever reason, he thought a woman would be better for him than all the men that were coming at him. And thank God for that, because he's my family.
Well, we got a guest question from none other than Travis Rice right here. So here we go.
Bombhole, a pleasure to be on. I appreciate the opportunity to ask my dear friend Circe Wallace a question. Circe, I feel like you've had to deal with a lot of adversity in your life, from your youth and upbringing to becoming a professional snowboarder, to then transitioning to help fight for the rights of your friends, riders, athletes, amongst brands and all the other hurdles that come with this type of career path. Transitioning then into forming your own agency and then earning your way and fighting your way up to becoming a VP at Wasserman, where you currently work today. My question is, for those who are trying to kind of break the mold and forge a path that has otherwise been a rarity in their lives and careers, do you have any recommendations on eloquent ways of asserting oneself into a career or a path that has otherwise not been that attainable? I feel like your insights could be helpful. Looking forward to the episode, and thank you.
Wow. Funny coming from him, just because he's
Done that.
and I mean, literally, he's pushing 1,000-pound boulder uphill all the time to elevate, expand, and create. So it's been such an incredible honor to work with him, and many of the highest highlights of my career have been in working with him. I mean, tenacity is the most important thing, right? Like, don't give up. Don't let people tell you it's not possible. I mean, I remember early on, I had a boyfriend in high school who was also a snowboarder and told me that I should just give up on a dream of being pro, which was at that time really what I wanted. And I broke up with him right then and there because it was like, no, like, I'm 17, like anything is possible, right? And I've really maintained that mentality in my own life. And I know that now I come from a place of privilege, but I did earn it, all of it, every cent. I am self-made in that regard. And so I think for me, and what's worked for me in pushing through the challenges and the barriers and the adversity that Travis is referring to is just not giving up. And I had like a really great, I got Wasserman, I'm actually an EVP, so I am an executive. And I was lucky enough, I work for a great organization. I really, really love being at Wasserman. And I don't know that it's always been great, but right now at this stage in my life, I just have so much gratitude for being with a privately held company that really does put people first. And they were nice enough to give me some executive counseling. So I have always, I was very lucky because I was an angst-filled kid and I had these hippie bohemian parents, but they also got me into some counseling when I was really at my worst. And it could have been easy for me to go down a dark path. And I remember her name was Joyce Baker. And from very early on, I had the gift of someone helping me navigate some of these challenges with positive outcome and understanding that, so much of it is the journey and not the destination. And I know that's, a trope or a cliche, but it's really true. And it's like, I think being ambitious is part of it, and that the ambition needs to drive your motivation, and that you can't let other people's noise get in the way of what it is that you want to do, and that you should pursue whatever it is that you want to do with reckless abandon, and don't listen to the naysayers, because it's so easy to get caught up. It took me years. It took me until I married my husband to not care, who's a total provocateur, who is constantly ruffling feathers, and also the most loving and kind man I know. to really understand that other people's perception of me is not important. And I think that is something that it was like, I was like 38 when I learned that. And the minute that I could detach from other people's thoughts or feelings or judgments about me was the minute that I realized that I was fully realized. And I think that is something that I hope that young people can learn very early on, that if you have dreams and if you have goals, don't let anyone take that from you, because that is yours, that you have full autonomy to go pursue whatever that is. And the most important thing in your life should be pursuing your passion. And I really think that so many people are deterred from that because of, just pragmatic influence. Like, how are you going to make a living at that? I mean, we've all lived through that, right? Mm-hmm. How are you going to make this work for you? How are you going to take care of a family? How are you going to, get health care? All of that shit. When reality is, it's like, just throw yourself into what it is that you love and know that it is going to take 10,000 hours. Like, I can't stand Malcolm Gladwell, but the one thing that I really believe that he was on point about is the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to master anything. And so I think we have a little bit of a problem with our youth in that they think, a lot of them have grown up with a lot of resources or some entitlements, and also like looking out at like, well, they have that, so I should have that. And that's kind of, I think, one of the fundamental problems that we have in the fabric of our society, of the American dream, which is like, well, so-and-so has a fancy house and a nice car, so I should have that too. That is the American dream. No, that's not the American dream. The American dream is that you put in your 10,000 hours and you get really good at whatever it is that you do, and you're providing a purpose and a service to the world in some way, and you find a way to make that work economically or not. Like, if you want to be an activist and that's what gives you joy and you're okay, eating pancakes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but that's what makes you happy, I really believe that should be enough, and that we don't need all of these attachments to material things if we are truly living in our purpose.
Incroyable. It's true,
wow. Wow. You were just in flow state, articulating perfectly.
I'm imagining so many 10-second pulls. We're going to have thousands of them from this show.
Yeah.
I don't mean to get on my soapbox at all.
No, it's not.
Like,
it's not soapbox.
Okay.
You're using the platform to speak from your heart, and it's also really important. And I think about that too. It's like there is a false American dream that is sold. That is like happiness is synonymous with material items, and once I get the job, then I get the big house that I've always dreamed of. Then you have the big mortgage payment. Then your fucking house broke and you can't do anything because you're tied to that. And it's like, those are the things don't make you happy.
Let's unpack that for a minute, because I think that is so important. I look at a lot of the people in my world who have a lot of money, and they are oftentimes the most unhappy people I know. And a lot of that is just because what do you do with all of it, right? And unless you're actually living in your purpose, even if you've had a ton of success, and that's very relatable to me because I did come from a low-income family, and for me, acknowledgement of my success was material things. I thought that's what was ultimately going to make me happy. And don't get me wrong, I still like nice things. And I know I said that earlier, so sorry to be redundant, but it's true. I want to drive a nice car. I want to live in a nice home. I want good thread count. I want to stay in the Four Seasons and go on surf vacations and, take heli trips.
Yeah.
But I would give all of that up in an instant, as long as I know my family is healthy and happy, and that I'm a high-functioning, purposeful, living a purposeful life. And I think that is the difference. And it's like we are constantly on this hamster wheel, and we have been conditioned as a society to, especially with the rise of social media, to fill the void of loss of community, loss of family, loss of connection or higher purpose with material things, and we project that because we think that's going to give us the endorphin hit or help us find love or attention or whatever it is. But ultimately, I think if you look observationally at celebrity culture and that 6 men own a majority of the world's wealth. Like, that is very, very problematic. And I think that we need to kind of get back to like what really is important to us in our lives. And I really hope that the youth can get to a place, and I definitely see some movement in the right direction, you know, with the youth, like in the streets fighting climate change and, you know, just making more conscious decisions, even about like where they bank or, you know, how they are contributing to some of these structures. But I still think we have a long way to go. And I think it's upon us to educate the next generation about what is really important. When you look at gun violence as the number one reason for death in children, and suicide and mental health illness, like, we have these really profound problems in our cultures and our communities. And the only way that we solve those is by us, you know, being supportive of our youth and helping them understand what a purposeful life feels like, and getting off, you know, some of these platforms that really are built on a capitalistic algorithm in order to sell products.
She's good. She's good, Mike.
I mean, I could listen to this
she's
all
good.
day. No, but I do agree. I mean, I think one of the things that comes up when you're talking is the connection. Like, you're doing something, you're making money, but there's all heart in it. So you're tying your passion and your heart to an action that maybe turns into money. But even the activists you mentioned, it's just about heart. And I am seeing this happen with the kids too. I'm starting to see more kids, even at the snowboard mountain, running 80s North Face gear or vintage clothing. And I think a lot of these things are interesting, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the heart. Because I think a lot of times when people think someone's successful, they spend 100% of their time gathering green resource, which is probably the miserable people you see. But you seem to have a nice balance of heart, and you're also, the byproduct is the green energy.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I think we kind of need to reindustrialize, right? And it's like, you know, not to get too political, but there's a lot of been discussion about like the Green New Deal, or like how we build things, right? And not just so much consumption. I think that's why kids, you know, even my kids are attracted to more analog technologies or experiences, and why we're also seeing like the rise in interest in real life experiences, and even what's happening in the metaverse, where there's like meetups, you know, where someone might be at home, but they're still having community engagement or interaction in an environment that they participate, whether that's gaming or art or whatever. And I think that, you know, ultimately, there are really bright glimmers of what a dystopia or a utopian future could look like. I think we're kind of caught in a little bit of a dystopian time, but that there is so much beauty in the world. And there is, you know, listen, all of us in our lifetime are going to live and die on Earth. I can't say the same for the space cowboys. I don't want to live in Mars. I don't want to colonize another country. Like, we have the most beautiful resources. I mean, how lucky are we to get to live in this time and have all of our needs met, and whatever it is, you know, you can pick any kind of food you want to eat on any night of the week, and you have access to that. That's like a new thing if you look generationally. So I think that, you know, yes, there's troubling times, but also I really believe in the future, and I tend to keep a really positive mindset about what's possible. And I think that is how I reconcile my own hypocrisies, is that it's a lot easier for me to help someone achieve what they want, because I'm not projecting that on them. I'm just in the service of helping facilitate whatever it is that they want. I don't make decisions for them. I just gather information and do outreach and make sure that I'm generating opportunity and helping take ideas and bringing those things to life. And I think that there is an artistic or a creative element to that I am particularly well suited for, that allows me to feel like I'm contributing in a meaningful way.
I think that's something really important to talk about too. What I'm hearing you describe with all these things too, because it's easy to get lost in achievement of achievement of a goal, right? I want to become a pro snowboarder at all costs. And in my experience, the most successful year I ever had, financially, accolades wise, I got there and I realized I was up and I had achieved a lot of things I wanted to. It was the most miserable year I've ever had in my life. And it was almost like looking down, like, hey guys, it's not up here. Like what you're looking for is not up here. And as I listen to you talk, and what I've learned as well is that human connection is so undervalued in our society and our life. And a real form of wealth is interpersonal relationships with other people. Like that's really like fills your soul. It's, you know, really like, and when I hear you talk about providing a service for your clients, it's like you are wealthy in financially, but you're also wealthy in personal relationships, which as a problem with Instagram, right? We have, and things like that. There's issues societally where we feel like we have human connection, but we're actually in a room staring down our phone doing this. And that's not, whereas if you go out in the wild and you go to a band or you go to the skate park and you sit with your friends, you're like, oh, I feel great. Well, sometimes the little phone interpersonal relationships are a little bit fake, or they kind of trick you. But the real ones, you know, like that you've nourished, bring great happiness. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, that's why we love snowboarding, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't be on your phone when you're picking a line or, you know, having to look 4 feet ahead of you, and you're in flow state. And that's why it gives us so much joy. And I think the more that we can tap into those kinds of things without this little device, I mean, pretty soon they're going to be embedded, right? I mean, no joke. Yeah. And now with chat, the chat IP or whatever it's called, I mean, it's going to get really fucking weird, you guys. But I think this kind of stuff, what you're doing here, is exactly the kind of things that we need to continue to do to have this real life, you know, connective tissue with our community. And, you know, I have a question for you, which is when you got to that state of your career and you had achieved all the milestones that you had wanted to, what was it that made you feel so empty?
Well, I didn't actually articulate this well, but what I was thinking and I didn't say is I wasn't nourishing personal relationships.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't.
You were doing it at all costs.
I was like, you know, I would always say like, you know, my significant other at the time, that was a train wreck. You know, bills piled up, like everything. I had no balance in my life. It was just like, it was like an alcoholic, but my alcoholism was getting clips and like at all costs, right? Which fucking, I still love it. I still look back and I wouldn't trade anything for the world. But you kind of get to a milestone that you think would make you happy, but you realize your shit's way out of balance, and you're like, well, the career's going good, but I haven't been nourishing relationships. Right. So let's shift a little bit here. And I think that's I mean, all the things you're saying as you're talking, I'm like, damn, she's like a Yoda over here, just dropping knowledge. Like,
well, I think even look at, like, you know, I see you have a picture of Tom Brady there. There's plenty of examples of the most successful athletes in our culture who really have a hard time functioning in their home lives or in their interpersonal relationships. And I think there are, you know, there's like an archetype, right? And I could name some of them, but I'll refrain from people that do pursue something at all costs. And that's because it's the only way that they can ultimately achieve greatness. And they'll leave a trail of tears to achieve what it is that they need. And that requires a level of narcissism. And I think if you look at the top athletes in their respective fields, most of the time they're pretty fucked up and they don't have great relationships. And, you know, they are, you know, post-career pretty unhappy and have to go a little bit through something to be able to come out the other side of it as high functioning and happy. Yeah. If you want to call it that.
I would almost recommend that to someone that wants to do that, where, like, you know, if you're 100% committed to a sport, don't even try to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend.
Totally.
Like, literally just commit 100%. If you want to be the best, there will be a trail of tears. I mean, there's 0 people that have ever been the best in the world, and I think that didn't have that behind.
Well, I got a theory too, like going back to football. Like you look at Aaron Rodgers, for example. You know, he was dominant quarterback, extremely dominant. Goes and does ayahuasca. All of a sudden, he's kind of starts sucking ass. And what I realized, my theory behind this is that he went and he did a bunch of stuff where he kind of unpacked some of that emotional baggage, and he realized like, well, if I don't lose, I'm actually still okay. It's like, you don't want that. If I'm like a team manager, if I'm a coach, I don't want anybody doing personal development. Like I want everybody like, if I lose, that means death. And that's how you're going to get a juggernaut of an athlete.
That's right.
You know? And then
I think that's very relatable even to me on a micro level. Like I was really worried when I was pregnant with Ava. I was like, oh man, like, am I giving up my career? Am I, my mom gave me some really good advice, which is like, this baby's coming into your life. Don't change anything. But I think that I really went through a period of like my ambition, because it was defined by material possessions or earning things or having good fashion or, driving a 911. I was afraid that the minute that I let go of the want of those material things, I wasn't going to be as successful, that I was going to be letting go of my ambition. And that was like a process to really get back to. And I think COVID for me was transformative in that we all went home, right? We all kind of had to go within ourselves and deal with our lives and our families in a way that allowed at least me to come out of it like with a reset of what was really important to me in my life. And I think that just allowed me a level up that, like I like nice things, but as long as I have a roof under my head and I can eat decent food and my family's good, I'm okay. And that realization also comes with a little bit of fear. Like, does that mean that I'm not going to realize my potential in my lifetime? I'm middle age, right? I'm 51. Am I going to be able to achieve what I want in business and in life if I let go of that core objective of, what we define as success?
Well, let me ask you this while you're talking about that. What's your why? Do you have a why you do it?
I mean, I do it for my family. I do it so that I can live the most full life possible while I'm alive on this earth. Like I have an immense amount of gratitude every day that I get to have this human experience, that I get to have these kinds of relationships, that I get to love and live fully, that my body works, that I'm at a state in my life where I get to be a fully conscious human being, like to be born into this body in this lifetime, despite all of the hardships that we all experience and generational trauma and all this stuff. No one's stuff is any worse or easier than anybody else's, right? It's all relative. But that I even get to unpack some of that in this lifetime, and that I have the resources to do that, it just feels like such an incredible gift.
It's inspiring.
Definitely. I guess that brings up for me, just on you just brought it up how grateful you are. Do you have like a ritual or a practice? Like Chris and I were talking, his thing is going walking in the park in the morning. I meditate and take a walk as well. Do you have one that you start or end your day with? Or
I mean, I always do something, whether it's, journaling or meditation, or more often than that, I'll take a walk in nature, or I'll surf, or I'll get on the hill. I would say surfing and snowboarding are the things that give me the most joy, just being in nature. But, my daily practice varies for sure. Like I really like Pilates, and if I only have an hour, that's what I'll do. But I do give myself time every day to at least like sit with myself a little bit. And I have an incredible husband who allows me space to do that.
Let's get an air horn.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk to you guys about Liquid Death. We've been annihilating these cans on the show. They look like beers, but they're just water. But big news, they actually have teas now. Jules, did you hear that? What's your favorite flavor?
I've tried all three of them, and I like them all a lot, but I think Rest in Peach is my favorite. It's just really refreshing, and it tastes pretty healthy.
Healthy taste. Love that. I'm an Armless Palmer guy myself. I like the Arnie P. I like golfing. It's a great tea. So definitely check out Liquid Death's new teas coming out right now. Basically, they're available with free shipping on Amazon and retailers near you. As an added bonus, the Bombhole listeners get 20% off their first Liquid Death apparel purchase, available exclusively at liquiddeath.com/bombhole. Exclusions may apply. That's liquiddeath.com/bombhole, and murder your thirst with these new teas. All right, we're going to dive into a couple Patreon questions. I want to start it off by saying thank you to our Patreon members. We're so thankful for you guys because they really help us do the show and support the show, and we really appreciate your guys' contribution. And some people submit questions, so we're going to run through a couple Patreon questions. This one is from Den M. Circe, as an agent, what was the most difficult contract negotiation you've been a part of? Even if you can't give names/details, maybe you could describe the scenario.
This is very fresh in my mind. I just dealt with a well-known footwear brand and a woman skate client who is not publicly on my roster, so I can speak relatively freely here. I was so shocked by this experience in dealing with this brand. I'm still kind of shook from it, to be honest, because I was dealing with another woman CMO who did not, or VP of marketing, I don't know her exact title. And I have history with this brand, which made it even more kind of disturbing. And it just really made me realize that this organization had completely lost its soul, had been acquired by a large conglomerate, and just the way this individual was treated and the lack of, like I had prepared all of this, like data informed, like how she over-indexed with their consumer and all of these incredible things that she had done and was doing for them. And they came to the meeting and hadn't even read what I had spent like weeks pulling data for and, really writing heartfelt communications. And I was just shocked. I was just shocked at the tone deafness of the process and the lack of respect. And, not that I expect anyone to know who I am, but this person should have. This person should have known not only who I was, but more importantly, who the client was, and why she was so important to the organization, especially in this time. So that really, I cried for days. I was so upset because I kind of had to fall on the sword for her. With a brand that had been endeared to me for many years. And it hurt. It really hurt that, one, there wasn't enough respect to at least read what I had created on her behalf. Two, how she was treated. And three, how I was treated, where it was just so dismissive. And then there was kind of a junior TM who really participated in that, and it just really hurt. And so I would say that, is just fresh. There's been a lot of them. There's been a lot of deals that have kept me up at night, or how I've been treated, or, I think there's a general attitude about agents that we're just interlopers or bottom feeders or whatever. And in some instances, I think that's true. But I don't think I am. And so when I am treated as such, it's really hard for me, especially with a beloved brand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of the misconception that people have had about agents is it's just that they just go get a deal.
Yeah,
But
they're
there's-
just picking up the phone.
But
or,
that's just literally the top of the pyramid. There's so much below it that you guys build.
yeah, and we
Careers
really
and mentorship and just
and counseling and
Yeah,
co-parenting and also like legal. Like I treat every client, whether I'm working for them pro bono, which I do. I always have a couple clients that I don't commission because they're not, it's like fueling a career. You got to get to a certain point before. And I only want to take money for deals where I bring value. So I think, I understand why there's sometimes that kind of perception, but also I think it's unfair when you're not willing to like do the research when you're dealing with an individual who you want to represent your brand, to do your homework at least when coming to the table on a negotiation.
Yeah, that's disheartening to hear. Going back to how you got into being an agent, I think this is a good time for you maybe to talk about the story about how you rode for Ride and that transition.
Yeah, well, I was riding for Lib at the time, kind of just on flow. I was at a trade show. I had met Tim and Steph. I met Tim in Japan and had like a lot of fun, and he's just great, Tim Pogue. And Steph Pogue, who is amazing.
she needs one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love Steph.
Oh, sidebar, I got to hijack this. I
Yeah.
miss air horns all the time. Like there's people's names that come up and I don't want to disrupt the conversation. So I get all these comments and people are like, dude, this such and such, did Jamie Lynn didn't get air horns. It's like, just like sometimes we throw in air horns, sometimes we don't. Just relax. I forget. I'm human. Okay.
And
keep
I feel
going.
like Jamie Lynn's had enough air horns.
Yeah, he does. It's like
that
he
he's
doesn't.
He
need
is
it.
an air horn.
He is an air horn. If you think he needs an air horn, it's obvious. But yeah. So I'm sorry if I forgot to give you an air horn. But anyway, I had to just kind of.
Can I get an air horn, please?
I need one.
Yeah, let's give you one. Let's give you the super air horn.
Yes.
That's nice.
Let's give Julian an air horn.
Yeah, Julian,
Julian.
nice job.
Producer back there. We're just throwing air horns out, making everybody feel good. I'm gonna give myself an air horn.
As you should.
That does feel good. Wow. All right, I get it now. I get what the draw is about. Okay. All right, I'll try to be better. Sorry.
All right. Where were we?
You were talking about riding for
right.
Lib.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, they were great. They were like family, but there weren't a ton of resources. And I also really felt strongly that like I really suffered in the shadow of Jamie's success. And for me, and through no fault of his own, I mean, he's spectacular. I felt like I needed to have a couple degrees of separation because I really wanted to be seen not as Jamie Lynn's girlfriend. And that was kind of a hard thing to bifurcate, right? Because that's what I was seen as. And no one had really seen me ride until Roadkill, which was my video debut. And even after Roadkill, I had so many people come up to me and be like, oh, I thought you were a dude. So I felt like I needed my own identity. And funny enough, we were all at, I guess it was SIA. Was it Vegas?
ASR?
Trade show. No, ASR was San Diego. I think it was SIA Vegas.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was a Vegas show. One of Ride's earliest showing, maybe their first, like formal, like decent size booth. And this is kind of an embarrassing story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because we're not infallible, and I definitely have some history. But there was this kind of proho chick who was kind of always lingering around and really annoyed me and was kind of like flirty with Jamie. And so I literally took her down in the hallway of the trade show.
Yeah, I've heard this story from Russ, but go on. I love it.
And, in retrospect was awful. Like it was not cool. And I was an awful person for being physically violent with someone who definitely didn't deserve it. But yeah, I took her down and Tim and Steph were there and saw the whole thing. And for whatever reason, that for them was it. It was like, oh, you can hang with us, right? And, we'll fuck with you. And that was it. From that point on, they brought me in and made me an offer, and I was, early days, and it was so fun. Like, they're so great. It was like a surrogate family in a lot of ways. Like, I lived with them in Issaquah and really got to get my hands dirty in product development. And, I got a whole line of boards and multiple series, and really got to like learn a lot and have a seat at the table as part of a team, as an equal that felt like it did feel inclusive. And it was such a good crew. And even now, like, I'm still friends with everyone on that team. And there's
Even
just
Mikey?
Yeah.
I was after.
He was later.
I was a huge fan of Circe.
Yeah.
But for me, as a fan, because I wasn't sponsored, I was seeing Ride as the team I wanted to be on. And you just seemed like such a fit. Like, if you look at Dale and Rowan and Russ and all the guys, kind of like edgy punk, new vibe, definitely a fashion change to the Roadkill crew, which was mountain gear.
Yeah.
You guys were running. Can you talk a little bit about that? Was that something you adopted, or did you just come from this?
I just came from the Northwest.
Yeah, that style.
Yeah. And, we were really in a baggy pant phase.
Mm-hmm. Punk rock a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I grew up, like, that was one good thing about the Eugene in my, my early adolescence, like 14 to, or like 12 to 14. Like, there was a really robust punk scene, and I got to see like so many good early shows. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Seattle when I was 15, and then was totally there for all, like I saw Nirvana in the Bellingham high school gymnasium. Yep. I saw Pearl Jam, was friends with Eddie Vedder, like got to really be a part of what was happening in that time. So yeah, I really came from that kind of skate punk culture early on, and then that kind of moved into more of a grungy snowboard era.
Yeah.
And you also had the first woman's pro model boot with Vans, correct?
I did.
Yeah. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was Cheryl Lynn, who was a rep for them, really gave like Gary and Walter Schoenfeld, who was Cheryl Lynn's amazing. Still a very close, dear friend of mine. But she really gave the Schoenfelds visibility. At that time, they were still privately held. Walter was just a great guy, cool family, and it was the same time that Palmer and Jamie had pro models, so they just built me into that. And then I was the first boot made on a women's last.
Wow.
So it was, smaller footbed, smaller sizing, which is crazy to think about now. Like, we've had some advancements. And I mean, it's sold like hotcakes. Mm-hmm. It's really...
Let's talk some cheddar bisque.
Let's talk bisque. Yeah, well, we got a good royalty check. Let's talk royalty check.
Yeah, I bought my property that I live on from a royalty check.
That's nice.
Do you want to elaborate more?
Can you share an actual
number?
000?
Of the royalty check or the price of the property?
I mean, we're just trying to provide, these listeners, let me tell you something.
It was very low six figures.
That's nice.
That's a fat ass royalty check.
That's awesome. For boots.
It was it was over a couple quarters or whatever.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like one fat check.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Still really nice.
It was life-changing.
What
for me.
What percent royalty was it? Do you remember?
I could pull it. I still
Chris
have
is
the
trying
contract.
to negotiate his current.
I think it was probably like 8 or 9%.
So they keep bumping it down and down and down.
But it was favored nations, meaning that I got the same as the guys, which was cool.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's amazing.
So it was life changing. Elaborate. I kind of interrupted you.
Oh well, I had moved around a lot as a kid. I went to like 11 different schools in 12 years. I ended up graduating from an alternative high school because I didn't really fit into the Seattle scene, which was actually really good for me. But I had never, like, my parents never owned a home. Yeah. So for me to like actually really dig roots, physically and metaphorically, was really good for me. Mm-hmm. And I still live in that home. Both of my children were born in my bedroom there. And, you know, that is kind of my legacy,
It's incredible.
to be honest. Yeah.
It's amazing.
We got a guest question that pertains to this from Benny Pellegrino. He said, I have always looked up to the way you and Andy raised Ava. Please tell us, what is the secret to being such a good parent and being a good parent post-divorce as well?
Leave it to Benny to bring the tears.
Benny needs an air horn too.
Yeah. Everybody gets an air horn today.
You know, I don't know. Like, Andy and I really loved each other, and we made a baby, and we both, you know, were young and had some challenges, and, you know, I'll take full responsibility for, you know, what was ultimately the end of our marriage. Or I won't take full responsibility, but I'll take a large portion of it, in that I just wasn't well equipped for, you know, I was relentless in my pursuit of my career. And I think that our relationship suffered, you know, under that. And a lot of that was because I felt like it was survival, right? Like, I had to figure out post-career, snowboarding career, how to make a living, especially having a kid. And so I just went like full bore into my career, and there was no, you know, I just had blinders on, and, you know, our relationship kind of took a back seat. And, you know, I think we did a lot of work. It wasn't like it happened overnight, but we really were committed to Ava, even in a divorce. And it took a long time. It didn't happen, you know, easily or overnight, but we were both really committed to co-parenting her. And he really held me accountable in a way that helped me level up, even post-divorce, in terms of like putting Ava first and not work. And you know, and still can be kind of compulsive about my work. Like, it's so much a part of my life and my identity. And he was a great reflection of prioritizing her. And so through that commitment to her, I just think we earned a lot of mutual respect for each other, and were able to kind of come back to a place of just loving kindness. And I really love his wife, who's one of my best friends. And we've raised our children together, and it feels very, you know, community. We live close to each other. And
well, we happen to have a guest question from Andy Hetzel himself.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go.
Circe, it's your ex-husband. So my question is, growing up as a dirty butt skate rat, how did you end up with your love for high-end fashion?
He would
Much
have.
love. Hope you and the fam are well.
Wow. He would be the one to ask that question. Just kills me. Really, I have Paige Clay to thank for my love of fashion. Paige Clay is one of my best friends in the whole world, and she is a Southern belle from Charleston, North Carolina, or is it South Carolina? I think it's South Carolina.
Could be South, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's South Carolina. Shows you how much I know about the Carolinas. Been there once. And she just came from an environment and an appreciation for fashion, and really taught me a lot about not only fashion, but like literature, and, you know, kind of a more sophisticated, she just expanded my world in so many ways. Like, she taught me about good thread count, or, you know, about the history of a lot of these brands that then, you know, once I kind of discovered how fashion can be such an expression. And also, like, I really appreciate how, like, well-made things can last forever. You know, like, so many of the investments I've made in fashion will go to my children. You know, like, they're precious things that aren't wasteful if you make an investment and they hold value and you know, they pay good wages to their manufacturers and things are actually made in good conditions and all of those things. So it was very much aligned with my bohemian parents' kind of influence and my desire for material things and this ability to express myself through fashion, which I still really love. I love fashion. I wish that I could be seen by some of those brands as worthy of being dressed by them. But I'm a dirty butt skateboarder, so in my heart.
Good stuff. Well, we've been plugging away here, and I think it might be time for a special part of the show we call Name That Video Part.
Uh-oh.
Name That Video Part is brought to you by Woodward. Now, here in Utah, we have Woodward Park City. It's only 15 minutes from Salt Lake City, and they're open pretty much all year round.
Yeah,
Mikey.
I love it. It's a one-of-a-kind action sports community. And you know, one of the favorite things up there is chucking it into the foam pit. Zero risk, little risk, but no pain. You can really learn tricks.
I've backflipped a scooter into the foam pit, but I've never actually gone and tried snowboard tricks. But I need to get up there because, like, dude, I'm losing. These things are dropping like flies. I gotta get them back.
Every time I'm up there, I'm seeing kids like they're on the floor, they're out there snowboarding, they're in the foam pits, they're dancing around. I mean, what a great place to have your kids, or even pretty much any given day, you're going to see top pros riding the park.
Mm-hmm. Think about what we had growing up. These kids got Woodward Park City. They're going to be freakazoids on the snowboards coming up.
Absolutely.
They also have Salt Lake City's one of the only indoor skate parks, so you can skate year round.
Mm-hmm. And some of the best coaches around as well. So if you're just starting out, or even if you're at advanced level, you could go up and get a really good lesson.
That's their big thing, is they want to develop you from all the way from beginner to, they have like little boxes all the way up to huge jumps and a super pipe as well. So it's for all ability levels, which is great. And the one thing that's really great is the affordability compared to a lot of these, day tickets that you see being up over $200. It's a very affordable place to get a monthly membership.
Absolutely. Get there after school for a couple hours. I love to, especially about to hit spring. I'm up there, work a full day. I can drive up at 4 and get a couple hours in, and it's plenty.
Perfect. Well, if you're in the Utah area, check out Woodward Park City. And we're going to get into Name That Video Part. Seriously, how are you feeling?
Insecure.
1 to 10. Where do you think you're at?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I have bad memory and I don't watch anything. So.
Okay, that's doesn't sound promising, Mike.
No.
I'm not sounding good here.
I tried to do a meatball, but this
Hopefully
might not have been enough of a meatball. I don't know if we'll see what happens. Here we go.
I mean, Art of Flight.
Yes.
Booyah.
You got it. You got it. You got it.
Travis would have been pretty upset.
You got it.
I'm so glad I got that one.
All this high-end fashion talk, you got some bomb hole merch, which
Nice.
is basically high-end fashion.
I do?
Yeah, this is your prize.
You just won that.
Yeah, so you just won a bomb hole prize.
Oh my God. Thank God you made that easy for me.
Yep, we got
I produced it, so I better know it.
Yeah. I went with some old videos and I was like, this seems like a little bit of a dice roll. Let's go T-Rick, Art of Flight.
Thank God.
I bet she'll get it.
Thank God. You think that it was an easy one. I'm so relieved.
Okay, part 2 of Name That Video Part. This one isn't for you. This is for our listeners. They get to guess. So if you know the song, comment on Instagram on the photo of Circe when the episode comes out, and that's where we pick our winner. Here we go. Great video. I know Mike knows that one.
I'm gonna let Circe take a swing. It was one of the most impactful and definitely a top member of your crew back in the day of Breckenridge times.
Okay, is it a Pennywise song?
Not Pennywise.
No
band,
Effects?
No, I don't think it's No Effects.
Well, who was riding?
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
align with the early Breck crew. Fuck, I have no idea.
Everybody's favorite.
Everyone's favorite from like. Okay,
Maybe had point.
Jamie.
Close.
Very close.
Merriman. Oh. Hold on. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for playing Name That Video Part. You did great. Congrats on your win. All of the gear in there is available at bombhole.com, by the way, if you want to support the show. To our listeners, maybe we should hit another Patreon. Let's see what we got. This one's from Frank Huang, Patreon member. Thank you to our Patreon members again.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
supporting
you.
the bomb hole.
You may have kind of been asked this already, but we're going to hit it again. What's the best advice you learned from snowboarding and being a female pro in the 90s that translates to your life as a professional wife and mother? And is it true that half the pro surfers have a bounty out on your husband, Chaz?
Maybe, yeah. Very good question.
Oh.
Two-parter.
Okay. First part, what did I learn as a professional snowboarder that has transcended into my career now? Or no, wife and mother. Okay. Personal safety? I don't know. I think I was probably, I learned a lot about what my risk tolerance was. And I think that applies as a mother. What I'm comfortable with. There's always that fine line of being like overprotective mom and also letting them do what they love. So I think that's, applied in like my personal learning, and the more educated I could be, about high risk environments and how to be responsible in them and minimize risk, and have taught my children that, so that I have confidence when they're out in the world that they're making good choices while still having fun.
Awesome. Amazing. And part two about your husband has a bounty on him for surfing?
Oh, I don't think. Here's the thing about my husband is he likes to ruffle people's feathers, but he's actually a really wonderful person. And I think anyone that actually really knows him knows that. There's a kind of a funny thing that people don't understand about my husband, which is he'll talk a lot of shit on someone, but the minute that they actually reach out to him or will respond to a request to have a conversation, that dissipates relatively quickly, especially if they're willing to either unpack whatever it is that he might take issue with or is writing about. And some of his closest friends have evolved in that way, which is he maybe wrote something about them kind of in jest. He's always just having fun. What he does, isn't that harmful unless they deserve it.
Yeah.
So...
Good stuff.
And he doesn't care what people think, so he writes from his heart. And I think there's very little of that left in the world. Our media and our journalism has been so compromised, and I think most of journalism is advertorial, and they don't rely on brands' investment, so they can say what they want without, with total autonomy to write how and what they want. And I think that's... it's like they don't have to bow to anybody, and I think that's pretty incredible.
That's really powerful. Yep. Free media.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to go back and talk about your transition with Ride when you had a lawsuit of some sort.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always talk about this, so I'll keep it quick. Obviously, Ride went through a lot of changes, and Tim and Steph essentially got pushed out. They put in this new CEO and went public. And then they had a pretty drastic fall in share price. It was like during that time where people would go public, just to make a lot of money. And then, it wasn't about the brand anymore. It was about how, at that point, I think they were kind of, share price was down and they were in negotiations with K2. And in an effort to minimize their liabilities, they did everything they could to cut costs. And I had been injured while actually working for them on a shoot, and they terminated my contract. And so I found a lawyer in Seattle who took me on contingency. Her name was Susan Fox. She changed the entire trajectory of my life, and I love that it was a woman. And she essentially made me write my own case. So I had to write out all my timeline and, really do the heavy lift to give her kind of all of the information to essentially file suit, which then got, pushed to arbitration. And then I essentially won that case in arbitration, and they had to provide me with settlement. So through that was it was a really empowering experience because, here I am, the little guy again fighting, the big corporate monster. And it was worth, every effort, because that then set me on a trajectory of how can I help others who find themselves in this dynamic where they don't know how to manage a big corporate entity's business decisions. They're non-emotional, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about me. It wasn't about me. They didn't do it thinking they were screwing me. They did it because they thought they had, this was what they needed to do to minimize their costs and make a nicer package. Mm-hmm. So. And
that changed your trajectory where you kind of were pro snowboarder, and then that's what led you to diving into being an agent?
Yeah, that was kind of the epiphany that I came out of that. I had a couple years left on my career. That was, my first ACL tear, and that was a really hard lesson and got me to start thinking about, okay, how can I continue to stay? For me, it was really, how can I continue to stay involved in this community and culture and business in a meaningful way, so that I could still go snowboarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting thinking about, all right, so being a pro snowboarder versus being an agent. Think about our listeners. A lot of them are striving to probably be a pro snowboarder. But I'm curious to you, which one's more fulfilling, has been more fulfilling?
Ooh. I don't know. They're so different, right? I think I've been really able, as a businesswoman, I've been really able to stretch myself in, learning and understanding how business works, and, being a master negotiator, and also the human relationships. Snowboarding was I got to travel the world. I got, I was so young, I got to develop, I had, such great relationships in partnerships, as well as friendships that have lasted a lifetime. And I got to be in nature. And I literally got to go everywhere. I've been to South America. I've been to New Zealand a bunch. I've been all over the world getting to ride my snowboard. And that was so transformative in being, I had never left the West Coast. I had never been on an airplane. Mm-hmm. And then I got to go do all this fun stuff. So.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Hard to pick.
Hard to pick.
Good
Hard to
stuff.
pick. Just,
no reason to pick, really.
And it's just so different,
Yeah.
It was I got to be young and have fun and express myself and see the world and make lifetime relationships. And now, at a certain point you got to grow up, and that's hard. Mm. It was a hard transition for sure.
I think it's really cool for our culture, though, to expand the avenues as far as careers in snowboarding.
100%.
That's important. If we love it, how do we keep careers in snowboarding?
Yeah.
And I think you're a great example of a way of a path that you've forged for yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I got some other. I'm going to change gears here.
Okay.
Pivot, if you will.
Let's pivot.
Ready. Hard-hitting topics here. So you are an agent, which means as the Olympics come around, there's like, if one of your clients wins, it's big money. It's once every 4 years deals. There's this kind of crazy Olympic push, especially if somebody gets a medal, which I think is great, especially for your clients and yourself. But I'm curious as what are your thoughts, being a lifelong snowboarder, on the state of snowboarding in the Olympics and where we've gone with coaches and government-funded teams and everybody at the top of the half pipe with an iPad and like airbags. And what are your thoughts on all that stuff?
I think it's great. I think whatever the kids want to do, I think it's awesome that we get to be on the world stage. And as much as I cannot stand, as I've shared earlier, bureaucratic, capitalist-driven power structures, which I think, the Olympics is a very good example of, that, again, it's about a kid's dream, right? And no one should take that away from them. If that's something a kid wants to achieve in their life and there's an opportunity to do that, I'm here for it. I will totally fuck with that because it's not my dream. I'm just there to help them get there. And I've been able to do that so many times. Like, it's really tangible. It's right there. I know what it takes. And I have been able to assist, I think, 7 medals in my career, and we're going into a next Olympic cycle. So to be able to continue to contribute in a meaningful way to someone realizing their dream is truly an honor. And I have all kinds of challenges and have historically, and all kinds of internal frustrations with the NGOs or how people run their business or how money is spent or wasted or abuse or abuse of power or all of these things that we deal with anytime you have a power structure like this in place that is historically corrupt. You inevitably have challenges. But I think ultimately it is global, which I think is really important. There is something, really incredible about a kid realizing that and having an opportunity to have that kind of experience on the global stage purely through their athleticism is really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I love seeing parts of it too. I think when it comes down to action day, I love the Olympics, all the bureaucratic stuff, whatever. But when you see Sage or someone else medal and then go on to represent our sport in a fun, cool way for weeks or months after, it's a nice gift, I think.
Yeah, and I've got to go on Olympic runs, with Tora and Scotty Lego and Yuri Podlachikov and Jagger Eaton and Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Zoe's
incredible.
Zoe's last run, gold medal winning run,
man.
She's
The back 10.
holy shit.
Yeah, those moments.
And to be able to be in her service in that way and celebrate with her, and especially her, right? Like, just pushing the limits. She just had her 23rd podium in a row.
How old is she?
22.
22. Just turned in Revy during the day she won. So I just, she is so incredible. I'm so glad they chose me. I just think she is such a force and a good person. And it is truly one of the great honors of my career to be her agent.
So cool.
And she's going to represent our sport, our culture, whatever you want to call it, well.
I agree.
There's people that have done it great in the past and people that haven't. And she's going to be one of those people she's a snowboarder. And that's what we need,
And she gives back in ways she doesn't even talk about. She does so much for her community and is just, and her parents and family are amazing. I really love them. And I just am so glad, again, that they chose me. I'm still kind of wow.
Yeah, she's about to go on a 10-year run of
I'm a
domination.
massive fan. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I love after the Olympics, her dad had some, like, they interviewed him.
Oh, my God. It was great.
Like, we're pretty fucking pleased about it, or whatever he said. Would he say something like that?
Oh, yeah. He's the...
That's awesome.
I think, Sean, you texted me yesterday and said, so who's the funniest dad in snowboarding? And I'm like, you by, like, a lot. I can't even think of the next funniest. So.
When you have her on Bomb Hole, let's get Dad in here and do a skit.
Oh,
let's
yeah.
get Dad in here for a skit.
He said apparently her dad listens to the Bum Bubs, and Zoe told me.
He does.
Let's go.
My dad loves your show. That's what she said.
Let's do it.
I don't think he misses one. So
should we give him the super air horn or the regular?
We should.
Regular or super?
But I mean, I think we have to shout out Mom too, because Robin is just
both of them
amazing.
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
Her poor mom's like worried about her all the time. I don't know how you do it. Like, I know how I feel just as her agent, but as a mother, it's got,
Well, Mom, as a snowboarder, she looks like she's in such control. Your daughter's talent is just it's incredible,
unprecedented. Yeah. And even like, I know she was probably a little bit disappointed that she didn't make history in her back-to-back world champs, but that Mia Brooks had to level up and do something no one had ever done again just to beat Zoe is like she is pushing the entire field forward in a way that is totally tangible. And she is gracious in being celebratory for Mia and anyone else who has success. She's really just such an incredible sportswoman.
Awesome. Yeah. What a good role model. That's awesome. Good style, too. All right, we could talk for days about Zoe.
The best.
But we do have a guest question. I almost forgot about this. From another agent. You guys can go agent to agent, talking sports talk. From Ryan Runke.
I love Ryan.
Who represents us, who we love as well.
What's up, Bomb Hole? Circe, it's Runks. How are you? I wanted to get your take on a few things based off your deep history as one of the pioneers in the agent world in action sports. You've been doing it for over 2 decades, and so I got a couple questions. Part 1, what is the biggest challenge you face in the current state of our industry as an agent? Part 2, since we've seen such a huge shift in the landscape of our industry from events, media, social, etc., can you tell us a couple main differences between being successful in your job now versus how you were able to be successful 15 years ago, and how do you continue to evolve your approach? Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for all you've done over the last 20 years, and stoked to see what you got coming up next. Bye.
Leave it to Uncle Runk to ask a couple very sophisticated questions.
You definitely wrote those down. You can tell he was reading them.
He was shuffling papers.
Love you, Runk. Okay, so the first part of the question, help me out here.
The biggest hurdles you've faced being an agent, I believe he asked, and then it was kind of how the landscape has changed from 15 years ago to now in being an agent.
Okay, so, and how I've evolved. The biggest challenge, I mean, I'll be totally frank here. The biggest challenge for me was working within an environment that was incredibly challenging with a contemporary who I don't have to work with anymore. I would say that was really, really hard for me. I had to really push down I had to dim my light just to survive it. And so, I have done a lot of work in kind of letting go of that because it was a really toxic dynamic, and I was and never will be able to be fully respected in the way that I feel I deserved from this individual. So I think now that I am no longer in that dynamic, I am able to accept where I sit in the space and feel good about it. And I'm not here to talk negatively about anybody. Like, it was all part of my journey, and it's not my shit, right? It's his. And so to be liberated from that is really freeing. And also, I've been in the game long enough now that it's like I have respect. I know where I sit in the world. I know and I'm comfortable with the power I yield. And so that feels very freeing. I don't care what people think about me anymore. 2, I know who I am and that I'm doing good work. And 3, that I am no longer bound to a dynamic that makes me feel bad about myself. And so I think that is also what has changed. I think the industry's changed a lot, and I've had to evolve my business in ways that expand beyond just the traditional model. Obviously, with the rise of influencer culture and the way we're doing more transactional deals for, one-off posts, or, there's less of these holistic deals. Also, the industry has had a hard time across the board, not just in snowboarding, but also in skate. And a lot of that goes back to, the homogenization and things being mass produced at scale and less kind of, bespoke products. And so I think that has been hard. The deals have gotten smaller for sure. They're harder. And you also are doing these kind of influencer-driven deals that aren't, kind of long-term endorsement deals, which make it harder. And you're having to do more transactional business just to provide value and maximize the opportunities. And that's tough, but it's also forced me to go outside of what I know. And I'm working a lot with some musical artists, since Wasserman now has a very robust music business unit. And I'm able to package with some brands because, like historically, the way that I fit in within the org was in action sports, which is so different from stick and ball. And we have to be creative. We've always had to create our own content because we're not, outside of a 4-year Olympic cycle. We don't have those same kind of corporate opportunities as the traditional, stick and ball or traditional sports. So we've always had to be creative. And so we've kind of been a little bit of a anomaly in that way within a traditional sports agency. And so we have to be creative thinkers. And I think that's what's so great. And then, inevitably the ebb and flow or evolution of industry, I've had to, go outside of what I know and learn more and establish some more relationships, like helping Trevor Andrew, or, I just did a deal for Oliver Tree, who's a musical artist. And I work with this guy, Stolen Nova, Josh Landau, who's, really fun and doing interesting things in music and is also a skateboarder. So I really am enjoying utilizing my skill set and bringing value to kind of non-traditional action sports athletes and developing a business. So that's how I have continued to evolve my business. And also, obviously, all of the production that I've done, like I'm a relatively prolific producer. I think if you look at the work that I've done, everything from The Life of Ryan, which I packaged and sold to MTV for Ryan Sheckler, Being Terry Kennedy, which was on BET. I developed and
Great
sold
show.
that show. The Mega Life of Jagger Eaton. I developed and sold that show. And then everything that we've done with Travis, from Community Project on, and Kurt Morgan, of course. And
Barracks too, right?
Yep, I packaged for the Barracks. I work closely with Steve. I've done a lot for him over the years. I consider him a dear friend and enjoy working with him. He's a true creative. And then, natural selection, which, is one of the great crowning achievements of my career, especially coming off Revy.
Let's dive into natural selection.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are the founders?
Well, historically, it was Travis's genesis. We did our first event in 2008 in Jackson. So that was our original event. Liam came in later. So, I mean, that's kind of the trifecta. We are where we are right now because of Travis's vision and Liam's ability to pull off the impossible. And so, I mean, I think Carter Westfall, who's CEO, is considered a co-founder. But it's again, in my work with Travis and helping him materialize. Kurt Morgan was on that production, and we used a different production company for the on-site logistics in that original rendition. And then inevitably it's evolved into what it is today. And it's been, 15 years? Something crazy.
Yeah, so let's talk about what it takes to pull off an event like the Revy Natural Selection. Because you guys are live, you're in the mountains. There's an insurmountable amount of hurdles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of processing what just went down because it was so radical. I mean, it just is so much work. And we're such a lean team, but, I think we all are really passionate about what we do. And I think that Travis has, this is his legacy. And no one was willing to do this. And I think he really feels a responsibility to continue to elevate the space and the sport and do it in an authentic way, like rider driven, which clearly it is. And I think if you look at any other kind of, obviously, we have Dew Tour, US Open is gone. We have World Tour, which is now FIS. We have the Olympics, and then we have X Games. And I just think there's nothing comes even close to what we just did. And it's not without a lot of challenges. And Jeff Pensignero is an early founder in a really meaningful way, and just has like a ton of ops experience, obviously, and has been and was our home for many years, whether it was ultranatural or supernatural. And he's just a great operator and a wonderful friend. And I've been so happy to have the opportunity to work so closely with this team. But what really gives me the most joy is that we're creating a platform that is untethered from some of these structures, and that the riders have a platform that are doing this kind of riding that you wouldn't really see otherwise outside of video parts. And so to be able to see it live, I mean, what we did in the level of action and excitement and nail biting conditions. And even Travis was like, before the event, he was like, this is a lot. And so the fact that everyone walked away completely healthy, and that Liam just, and the heli operation and the resort and Yeti and Red Bull and our partners that give us the resources to do this amazing thing, backcountry, allow us the autonomy to continue to evolve the sport in a really meaningful way. And that is truly one of the crowning achievements of my career, specifically in snowboarding, which is,
Yeah, I watched it with 8 people. It was mind-blowing. The live feed was incredible. And I don't think it's definitely never been captured. I mean, it's been captured in previous, but this particular one that just hit a new level live. Like watching, a video part, you see the perfect stuff. But the way that these riders rode with all the drone, it was just next level.
Gab, who is our drone operator, PhD.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, he is the best in the world. And what he's doing it's just adding a whole new dimension that we never had before. And to be an innovator once again, like what we did with Art of Flight, and Kurt was and is always pushing the limits of possible, and then with Gab coming in and adding this level of texture and dimension that didn't exist before is really, it's like gamifying.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, and it seems like amongst the core culture, the nucleus of snowboarding, that's what people care about. We have X Games, we have Do Tour, and but the interest, at least in our circle, that people are fired up about is natural selection. We weren't able to do anything this year. There were some things that came up last minute, but past 2 years before, we've done Natty Select watch parties, where you get everybody together and we do a live, we just film ourselves watching it, and and everybody's commenting and we're commenting, and it's like I'd liken it to a Super Bowl. It's like, for us, the natural selection every year is kind of like the snowboarders Super Bowl, where you get together and watch everything, and it's you guys are doing a great job, and I do think the live is the key element. Like the Alaska stuff is great, but I kind of watch it almost in passing. But when it's live, there's something special about the.
Yeah, well, we definitely need more endemic support to continue to go live. It's a very expensive production, and we don't have, we have some, but it's not nearly robust enough. And it is my sincere hope that after this one, it's a little bit of lightning in a bottle, and that people can see its potential. We had incredible engagement. We had a ton of concurrence. I'm not supposed to share numbers publicly, but it was an incredible success for us. And especially when you're doing something with a hold period where, we can't be on a traditional network. And, I don't know what the business formula is that it's ultimately going to land for us. We would love to be live, and we would love to expand. But also, we need more industry support in order to do that. So I'm hoping that the community really shows up for us, or we experiment with it being behind a paywall, or, finding a way so that we can continue to go live, and add events.
I hope the endemics are able to step up and watch it, and that's that it's good to see. Another huge hurdle. We're talking about all these big issues in snowboarding, bigger. You look at it zoomed out. You look at snowboarding zoomed out. I'm looking at my feet in front of me a lot of times, and so it's like FIS runs now Freeride World Tour. I just found out just now. FIS runs the Olympics. FIS runs all the major World Cups. It's a Federation of International Skiing. The Ski Racers. Ski Racer Foundation.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are the only ones that are run by snowboarders, right? So
that's right.
That's important. It's something to not be taken lightly, and it's something that people need to realize. The importance of that.
Yeah.
Snowboarders need to control snowboarding. That's important.
I agree.
Yeah. One thing I do love about, even they own that. And we were talking earlier about brands, and there's definitely some brands that, it's just data. But one of my struggles is, like, the Olympics had Todd Richards, who did such an amazing job representing snowboarding, talking about snowboarding the right way. It's such a hard thing. You have some things that could be seen a certain way, but then there's always people there at those brands and at, events like that. There's great employees at these, questionable brands that love it, and they're so passionate. And I think, that's one struggle I have. I don't know if you ever have that same struggle.
Yeah, I have it all the time, but it goes back to, it's about margin and profit, and it's like, we need to. My hope is that there can be, like, that one of these major brands is really going to see how important this is for the space, and it will convert to sales. It already does, right? And we have our alliance, and we have a lot of industry support. I don't mean to diminish that, but I really think that, it does take someone at the top of one of these organizations to love what we're doing so much to be willing to take some risk. And that's a hard thing these days, especially, you know, the economy has been hard. It's been hard on everyone, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, especially with some bank failures upon us. And COVID was rough. I mean, it really shut down the world, and we're all still kind of recovering in a variety of ways. And I just think that I'm hopeful. I'm really so proud of what we did in Revy because it was so spectacular, and it was, you know, we've done, you know, I don't know how many we've done now, but this one felt like we really got it right, like in every way for the first time, like between commentators, environment, support from the Heliop and from Revelstoke and Selkirk Tangiers. Sorry that I needed to shout them out. And I expect that, you know, Revy will be a regular stop for us.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and talk to you guys about IKON Pass. They got over 50 of the best resorts in the world. The good stuff is coming your way. They got early season, limited time offers. Grab the best prices on the 23-24 season and get all the early season goods. Upon purchase of the Buy Now, Ride Now, with immediate spring access to 6 mountains and a total of 12 destinations by April 10th. If you buy this pass now, the immediate resorts are
Big Bear, Snow Valley, Blue Mountain, Stratton, Sugarbush, and Snowshoe.
By April 10th, all of the above, plus
Mammoth Mountain, June Mountain, Palisades, Tahoe, Winter Park, Tremblant, Canada, and Solitude, Utah.
Claim big savings on child passes with purchase of an adult pass. Unlock spring's lowest prices and score renewal discounts when you renew your IKON Pass for the 23-24 season. The good stuff is coming your way at ikonpass.com. All right, Circe, so you've worked with a lot of incredible talent over the years and represented a lot of incredible people. I was wondering if you maybe wanted to shed some light on one or a couple of your favorites you've worked with.
Well, sure. I guess one who comes to mind that we haven't really talked much about yet today is Tora Bright. I signed Tora when she was 15. I mean, a child. And to be working with someone through the trajectory of her career and her incredible proficiency as an Olympian and as a snowboarder is just like truly such an honor. You know, in Sochi, I was there and working with her when she won in Vancouver, which was so much fun. And she had just worked so hard to get there. And then the next cycle was Sochi, where she did 3 events, which has yet to be done, male or female, I think, in snowboarding at the Olympics. And she silvered in pipe. And just the amount of work and commitment that it took to compete in 3 Olympic events is just like, I mean, there's a reason no one else has done it. And the fact that this incredible woman was able to achieve that and win a medal is just like truly, I mean, that was such a fun Olympics. And, you know, who knows if I'll ever get back to Russia.
Yeah.
So that is very much etched in some of my favorite moments. And then, you know, just being a part of her life as she has moved into motherhood and her ongoing, you know, commitment to snowboarding and being a leader, and just her legacy has been really fun. And, you know, I did a couple press tours with her in Australia, and now she's living in LA, and she's close, and I get to see her and her family and her baby, and she's got another one on the way, and she's just such an incredible mom. And to just be with a client through all of those phases of a career is truly a gift in friendship. I consider her one of my dearest, and her whole family, Rowena, her sister, and they live here in Utah, and her 3 sons, they come stay with us often. And Hemingway, my 10-year-old daughter, is besties with Tora's nephew, Thor, who's a ripping skater and comes and skates Poods and some of the local parks in my hood. So it's pretty great.
Awesome. That's cool. Well, we've been going pretty strong here, and one thing we haven't brought up that I think is important is the sports mastermind course that you've been working on. I'd love for you to explain that to myself and our listeners.
Okay, yeah, this was really spawned from Sue Izzo, who is a former agent, and my desire to essentially provide some kind of accessibility to information to help parents and young kids navigate the world of sponsorship and kind of what it takes to be a pro. I think both of us felt like there was a lot that we could do to help build foundation through education and information and helping kids be better prepared. And also, to be totally frank, have better relationships, whether it's with their parents or with sponsors. And so Todd Richards is now a partner, and we had Mikey on one of our last sessions.
Loved it.
Yeah, it's truly kind of a labor of love. It's, we do charge for it, but only because there's some hard costs. And we really are building community through these classes, which is really fun. As I shared earlier, I've found a couple clients through it, and I've also gifted some of my development clients, access purely to, glean the information that we're sharing. I think that's one thing that we've kind of been missing in our community is also, and Mikey and I have talked about this a lot, the need for transitional counseling, like post-career.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that, we have all, these incredible young talents, and, snowboarding and skateboarding in these spaces are really a minefield. There's a lot of indulgence, and there's a lot of, thrill seeking and living life on the edge and adrenaline and fame. And with that comes some challenges, and being able to assist my community in a meaningful way, not necessarily just my clients, gives me a lot of joy. And in even talking to Sue and Todd, they love it too. Like, they're so, like, after your session, like, we just hung up and we were just like, oh my God, that was so fun. Mm-hmm. And to be able to interact with parents and help them have better relationships with their children and be better prepared, and help create a little more kind of texture around what good parenting is with a kid who has potential, so that they can also, help them and be helpful to them in their trajectory, but also, create a little space for, where is that balance in being supportive and also maybe being a little much or potentially damaging to opportunity because of, over being a little frothy.
Yeah. Oh, there's some parents that could use
that.
That I can think of right now.
Just being on for the short amount of time I was on, I felt so happy for these kids, because of course the parents, you're really training the parents and the kids in a way. But also what I saw was these topics that we should be taught in school.
Right.
Like, how do you handle a bully? What are the ways you navigate relationships? These kids, whether they turn pro or not, they're learning all these life skills. That's what struck me. It was really just life skills. And I also had a thought coming in. I was watching all the kids' faces, and these kids are what? Like, there's 5 to older, 20, I don't know. But I was expecting the young kids to be like, playing, picking up. They're just glued to the screen, which I found was amazing.
Yeah,
I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about, and you were a part of this discussion, and you were such a perfect representative of the dialogue of like that, an abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset, and that, and we get into the 10,000 hours and just like managing expectations, because you've got kids who are living in a social media world where it's just like, they want the endorphin hit and the popularity, and then, they're dealing with so many social issues. And just being able to speak to that in a really positive way and give them tools and their family tools and how to navigate that in a healthy way, I think is just, I guess, it really is. It's almost selfish in how much I enjoy it because I feel like I am participating in the next gen.
Yeah.
And we follow all the kids, and some of them are like, really, you see it.
Yeah.
You see the attitude shift. And, we teach them things like, how to deal with toxicity in social media, as well as, best practices, right?
Yeah.
And some accountability on the parents' part to make sure that they're not endangering their children's health and happiness through living in the algorithms.
Yeah. It felt really healthy. I was so impressed.
Yeah. Well,
So where can people find it if they're interested in signing up?
Well, you can follow us on Sports Management Mastermind on Instagram. And then we offer courses like 3 or 4 times a year. So just follow us and you can sign up. There's an email enrollment. And then, we essentially do like a blog that's full of all kinds of information. And then we offer, some one-on-ones for parents and kids who want more post-class. And it's a slow burn. Like, this is something that we feel we're really doing because we love it. And, we do it when we can. So come join us.
Yeah, I love that you say you feel like, what did you call yourself, selfish for doing it? Because I love that. I mean, one of the things I mentioned to the kids and I saw you doing was the mentorship. But you're also gaining that same by teaching, which is really sweet to hear.
Yeah, and it is a little self-serving in that, like, I think, this is how I want to introduce clients to the potential of working with me, because they have the fundamentals already. I don't have to be like, okay, do you know how, what's important here, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it a lot easier to just naturally start, developing a mindset and an attitude and an opportunity.
That's good stuff. And then you just said, what did you say about mentorship too, Mike, too? About when you mentor somebody, you're also getting mentored?
Yeah, that's my view. I mean, I mentor some kids, but it's always eye to eye, and you learn just as much as the mentor. The kids are mentoring you. It's equal. There is a mentor. Usually there's a problem, but through the process, you're gaining equally if you're doing it right, I think.
Totally.
A couple Miyagi's around here just dropping knowledge on me all day long.
That's what happens when you hit 50.
Yeah. Holy smokes. All right.
Midlife. We only got so many days left on this earth. So
absolutely. Got to get it in.
Time.
Yep. All right. So we're going to get into hot takes, one of my favorite parts of the show. Hot takes is presented by Oakley. I recently started wearing a helmet. I run the Oakley Mod 1 Pro. Pairs nicely with the Oakley Line Miner goggle. I go over the helmet like that. And I'm happy with it. Great low light, incredible product. They support the show. They support me. So feel free to support Oakley.
I'm down for a box too anytime.
Yeah, get you a box. Let's get him a box. All
hey,
right,
Nico.
Yeah,
where are you at?
Nico, let's get Mikey laced out. All right, so we always started off with GOAT and or Michael Jordan, however you say. Have you ever want to take this? Both male and female in snowboarding. Who you got?
I mean, Zoe and Trav.
Solid choices.
Solid choices. I'm going to say biased, but
a little biased, but hey,
but you can't very valid choices.
Cannot argue with that.
I mean, only the
like
best.
I can only do a top 10, so.
I'm wondering. Yeah. I don't know if Travis. Zoe's probably got picked before, but Travis gets picked all the time. But yeah, I love that. We kind of talked about this already. Art or sports, one of them. Next one. Who's the most underrated in your opinion?
Underrated snowboarder, like holistically overall, just in general.
I think I always think it's to you. You know, maybe somebody that
Maybe underrated or underappreciated.
underappreciated. Yeah, underappreciated's good. You know.
I mean, I guess I would say, like, just observing Dustin Craven's. Like, I never really had a lot of visibility on Dustin's skill level, but having a front row seat these last 2 years, like, I'm just blown away. And also just like his spirit. Like, he's funny, he's witty, he's also like, sometimes you're like, was that a joke?
Yeah.
Or was that serious? Like, and he like gave a speech at this last kind of closing ceremony, and it just blew me away. Like, he's just a solid dude and an incredibly talented writer, and I don't know that he's been really recognized as much as he probably should be.
Yeah.
Great answer.
He's a ripper.
I also, like, you know, worthy of mention, like Mikkel.
Oh yeah,
He's incredible.
another
I think,
great answer.
yeah.
Okay, steel or powder?
Steel?
He has in like rails.
Oh, powder. I mean, there's no question there.
I'm interested in this next one.
Best style ever.
Oh, man. I'm going to go with Nico.
Solid choice.
Nicholas Mueller, great answer. Okay, best snowboard video ever made, in your opinion?
Art of Flight.
Biased, but also
Sorry.
great answer.
Sorry about it.
Don't be sorry. I loved it.
I just think it transcended in a way that nothing ever has and put us on the map. It's funny because do you guys know who Ruben Östlund is? He's the director of Triangle of Sadness, and he did Force Majeure, the film. He's a Swedish filmmaker who now he got just nominated for an Academy Award. And I DM'd him just a couple days ago, just letting him know how much I love. He is an incredibly talented director. And I just texted him, you all should watch his films. You know, they're a lot about, you know, like societal, you know, issues and wealth disparity and just very interpersonal relationships, just really, really smart. So I slid up in his DMs like at midnight on Oscar night and was just like, I just want you to know how much I love your work. And the only reason that you didn't win is because of your anti-capitalist message. And you can't win with the capitalists. And I said, you know, I had some experience in film and that I had done Art of Flight, EP'd Art of Flight, and he hit me right back and said that he loved Art of Flight. So, you know, that's just like a microcosm of
amazing.
like, you know, we did something just totally radical. And, you know, there's aspects of the film I don't love, but overall it was a really
I think
fun
it was
project.
Groundbreaking. I mean,
Yeah.
I fight the good fight on the Art of Flight all the time.
Yeah. I liked
Loved
Roadkill
it.
too, but also biased. I was in it.
Both great answers. Best snowboard graphic ever.
Oh, man. I don't know. Maybe Blue Kitty, Jamie Lynn.
Solid.
Very acceptable answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some that are not acceptable. That was acceptable. Okay. It's kind of like you're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion's wrong sometimes. That's how I feel. That's how I feel with some of these answers.
What is your favorite?
Mine's actually, this is a really random one. And somebody brought it up and had the same one, which kind of baffled me. I actually don't know the name of the board, but Seth Hewitt in Shakedown rides this. It's a Capita, and I think there's a worm on the bottom, and it's green. And I don't know the name of it, but I always just loved the way it filled the space. I always like graphics of like, you know, obviously there's the sword and the kitty, and I like
right.
like, you know, big.
To me, this sounds biased and unacceptable.
But this was before I rode for Capita.
I know, I'm just joking.
What is yours?
I got to go with Noah Selaznick with the skateboard.
Skateboard,
Oh.
yeah.
So he's got the Noah's Ark graphic.
And he's
too.
holding
That one's
onto the
good.
bag and the snowboard, and it's just so classic.
Yeah, Andy did one too.
And they were
The
that
Lamar,
was
yeah.
very close.
Yeah.
And I would say Terrier's wooden sword was pretty sick.
That was kind of in my mind, but
Everybody says sword though. You don't want to go
Pretty
sword.
dope. I'd go with Noah because Noah is he was just magic.
The other one we got to talk about that I always think about, it's the Tarquin
I had that board, the baby blue top sheet shotgun sauna.
So good.
I had that board. The board sucked, and I did not care because it looked so dope.
Just looks cool.
It was one of the only boards that came cut down, like we cut them down too. So they were super on point.
Yeah, good shit.
Was that a no high backs situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No high backs.
I remember that era.
You were a big part of me wanting to ride like that.
Yeah, well, I always had high backs because I needed a little forward lean to get some torque.
Yeah.
Hold that heel edge.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna keep things moving. Favorite band / musical artist.
Ooh. All time?
Sure.
Time.
Dealer's choice.
Oh.
By dealer, I mean your choice.
One and only.
Oh, Billie Holiday.
That's nice. Timeless.
Acceptable answer. Okay. If you go heliboarding with 3 people, just good times, just whacking pow turns, who you taking?
Alive or no longer with us?
Anybody. Celebrities, people that are dead.
Okay, so like
fictional
this is like
characters,
your dinner.
Dream people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Craig Kelly, of course. Can I shred with Obama?
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
That would be some fun conversation.
Yeah, one more spot.
I'm going to say Victoria Jaloux.
Ooh, that's a wonderful answer. I would love to see her and Craig carving down the mountain.
Yeah.
She's so underappreciated, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot more. I'm kind of regretting the Obama, but.
You could change it up. We're still here.
I think Obama's a good pick. I think you stick with it.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up with the last question. Worst trend.
Worst trend. TikTok.
Great answer.
That's awesome.
They're all great answers. All right, and then we pretty much did it. But I kind of while I got you here, I got a question that I want to ask you too, because I think about I say this on the show pretty publicly, and I have no data backing this up whatsoever. And I think you could probably fill me in on why. But I remember you said earlier, you're like, oh, the contracts have been getting smaller. And the way I see it is when I look at pros in like maybe the early 2000s, it was just, the pool of riders was small, and the pie was maybe a similar size, but now there's just a giant influx of talent. There's just way more talented snowboarders than there ever has been, and the pie is the same size. And so that is my theory on why it's harder to make a living snowboarding now, and I don't know if that's right or not, but that's my theory.
I think the pie has gotten smaller.
The pie's gotten smaller.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that just goes back to you look at like the airlines or all of these major corporations who are just it's like squeezing as much profit as you can out of the business, and marketing tends to be one of the things that you can trim from. And as a result, also, and I talk about this a lot, there's like price fixing happening. It's like all of a sudden, nobody is paying anybody very well. So you lose your leverage.
Yep.
Good point.
I see it the same way.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like the top 5, top 10, top 15 people in our sport, or 20, I don't know what it is. Let's just say 20 are like, they're doing great. Maybe there's like a small percentage that are doing great. And then the rest, it's like very middle class kind of pay.
Yeah, it's like wealth disparity, right? There's like 5 people that make all, 90%, and then everyone else gets the crumbs. There's no kind of middle range.
And it's hard, but then the people up top, they're worth it too, right? Like, 'cause they move the needle.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
then it's a tricky situation.
Yeah, there's nothing worse though when you have a brand who's like, well, we give all our money to the person who, so we don't have anything left over for anybody else. It's like.
All right, it's time to get into the Pub Beer Crapshoot. They support the show. You should support them. If you're thinking about getting completely annihilated responsibly, choose Pub Beer. Here we go.
Welcome to the Pub Beer Crapshoot.
Talk about a brand they support a bunch of snowboarders. It's good. good. So if you could just go ahead, seriously, and roll those 2 dice, I will tell you what you land on correlates to 10?
9.
Oh, 9. Oh, I like this one. This
Okay.
is a perfect question for right now. 9.
Perfect.
Name one thing still on your career bucket list.
Ooh.
I really want to make this film project, which is, I guess I'll just go ahead and share it.
Sure.
Ride or Die, which is basically taking like state-of-the-art action in every genre possible, paired with like horror or Twilight Zone like episodes.
We going Netflix? We going HBO? What are we talking here?
I'd be fine with either. But yeah, I mean, I guess, my initial instinct on that question is like being nominated for a major film or television award.
If you need an actor, Mikey's facial expressions are unbelievable.
I like to act, and I will jump off some shit with zombies chasing me. Too, so
He's a
let's go.
stuntman actor.
I know.
Twofer.
I mean, you're on the list of
Let's go.
collaborators.
Yeah.
I'm ready. And it's funny, we've been talking about something similar, like how do we script this but not make it corny or make it so corny that it's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it bad for me to put that out on the river of ideas?
No, I think it's just motivating.
Okay. Now I have to do it.
Yeah, now you got to do it. You said it. You got to do it. It's like when you claim a trick on the jump.
Oof. Damn
it. I
Yeah.
wish I said 360.
Yeah. If anyone tries to take it, I can reference back to my bomb hole.
It's true.
It's my IP.
All right. So, I mean, that's pretty much been it. Last things last is if you want to do some thank yous before we wrap it up, and then we'll put a bow on it.
Oh, sure. I would love to thank my family for all of the support that they give me, and my incredible husband and my daughter Ava and Hemingway. Ava's a soccer player at Vanderbilt and just crushing it, and Hemingway's a ballerina who just got into SAB, which is a big deal. So I'm so proud. I want to thank my parents for supporting me and my weird and random trajectory, especially at this stage in their lives. I just have such deep appreciation for them. My sisters, who I love dearly. I'd really like to thank Wasserman and Ethan, who works with me and is relatively new to my team, but has just been incredible. Michelle Kimbrough, who was with me for a very long time and just had her first child, which is so exciting. Oh my God, there's so many people I want to thank. I could be here for hours. Every single one of my clients for believing in me, Wasserman for the ongoing support and an amazing place to work. Bob McKnight at Quick, who believed in me at a young age, and I was the first Roxy girl in North America, so that was a fun chapter, and has been a great mentor and is a good man. And Lisa Hudson, who does boarding for breast cancer and is a wonderful friend who I love dearly. Man, I mean, there are just so many. I know this is the one I'm going to come back and be like, oh, God, why didn't I have my list? But Mauricio for driving me here today, picking me up and taking me to breakfast. The whole crew at Absinthe. Love Justin and Brewsty and Shane. And all of the people that have supported me and been there for me and all of the wins and sad days. I feel like I have this entire community to hold me up, and I'm incredibly grateful. And so thank you for having me here today and getting to talk story.
Well, thanks so much, Circe, for coming on the show. It's been a blast. Thanks for everything you do for snowboarding. And lastly, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners, all of our supporters, Patreon members, sponsors. We really appreciate you guys. And Mike, thanks for being a guest host today.
My pleasure.
It's been fun.
Thank you both for letting me be here. I loved it.
Well, appreciate you guys. We got an episode for you next Wednesday. Hope you guys have a great week. Over and out from the Bomb Hole.
Thanks. Love you.
That was a great show. Seriously?